Hey folks, I'm Chris and I'm your Commander Mechanic, and I wanted to thank you for joining us once again for another roundtable with these amazing luminaries of the Commander community. Before we get started and I introduce these wonderful people, I wanted to remind everyone that today we are raising donations for Trans Lifeline. Hit Command Donate in chat so that you can contribute to this fantastic cause. Every donation in increments of $5 enters you to win draws at the end of the night. We're giving away everything from Infinite Tokens prize packs to arena bundles. And depending on the milestones we hit, you can win Commander precons as well. So please, let's help us raise some funds for this amazing charity. And of course, we're here to talk about Streets of New Capenna, the latest set from Magic the Gathering. Of course, we all know and love the game. So let's get to the introductions of our incredible people that are here to talk about the latest set. Let's start with Ken. Ken, who are you? What do you do? And which of New Capenna's families do you belong to?
That last question's a tough one, but I'll buy myself some time to think about it. My name's Ken Bauman. I run the channel Stacked EDH. We make videos about Commander, both casual and competitive. I run the Krark Unified Krark Discord called the Thumbless for brewing various Krark decks. I maintain some Krark CDH Krark primers on Moxfield outside the world of Magic. I'm a writer. You can find info about my books at kenbauman.com. I'm very excited to be here, and I don't know. I think I like the vibe, the cutthroat vibe of the maestros, but I think I have got to go where Rocco is and go with the tribe of my people, the Cabaretis. It's the most probably Italian American of the tribes or whatever, of the family. So I'll go Cabaretti because I want to eat the food. And there was flavor text about people joining the family just eat the food, and that's me.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Excellent draw for any family, right? Family meals. There you
Exactly.
go. All right. Rachel, who are you? Where do we know you from? And which family do you belong to?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Rachel Weeks. I'm a member of the Commander Advisory Group. I also have a comedy commander podcast called Commander Sphere with my co host Dan Sheehan. And I'm on Twitter as Rachel Reeks. Sometimes people just know that. I have decided that personally I am in the Obscura family. That definitely leans into the way that I play Commander, a little secretive, a little sneaky. You're trying to get sort of quiet value until you can pop out of a box at the end of the game. I play Commander like a Jack in the Box. I don't know.
Right? There's no winning until Pop Goes the Weasel has played, right?
Yeah. Most of the time, just a closed box.
Perfect. All right. And Jake, where would we know you from? Who are you? And which is your preferred family?
Hey everyone, it's Casual Jake. I am a Magic the Gathering content creator, kind of now really focusing on Pioneers. Some of you may know me as the savior of Pioneers. Some of you may not know me at all, but that's me. That's my introduction right there. I'm also an avid Commander player. I stream over with Elder Dragon Skyplander twice a week, and we have a great time over there. In fact, we have a brew off every time that a new set's coming off. So we're looking at the new set. We're picking our Commanders and brewing those decks to feature soon. So you can check me out at Twitter, casual_Jake_, pretty much everywhere. As far as families go, I'm going to kind of pick the flavorful one, and I'm all about the Riveteers. I'm all about the working class, power to the people, like unionization, like seize the means of production. What? Yeah, all that. I'm about the Riveteers. I like that. We definitely, yep. And oh my God, we're gonna get into that. I'm sure a lot of the working class iconography coming into the set, at least especially in that family. So I'm Team Riveteer.
Nice. Awesome. And lastly, but never leastly, as always, we've got Clay with us as well. Clay, how do we know you apart from here on the channel, and which family do you belong to?
How are you going to steal my opening line, which is "you know me from here"? All right. Hi, friends. I'm Claybee. I am, as Chris just mentioned, I'm one of the C's in the CNC Power Hour. Ordinarily, here we play virtual EDH along with a bunch of other Magic formats, different stuff like that. You can also find me playing Magic around the community. CEDH, casual, basically every level in between. You can also find me playing D&D and other TTRPGs around Twitch as well. Having lots of fun with that and kind of exploring this new environment and new experience for me. So when they like announced the families and they first gave us like the first tastes of the families, I thought I was brokers, like 100%. Bant is where I live normally in Magic. That's like my favorite 3 colors. I was like all in on this. And then they started showing us more and more of the cabaret. And I was like, the extravagance, the party, the cats, like the cabaret are exactly who I am, really, really at my core. Like there's a little bit of brokers, but like that I'm definitely there for the party. I'm definitely there to have a good time. And like Ken said, I also love to eat. So, like that never hurts. But yeah, no, I'm cabaret all the way down.
Amazing. And of course, I am your moderator as always here for our roundtables. I am Chris, and I am your commander mechanic. And I kicked off looking at the set thinking that I was a maestro, and they invited me to join the maestros. But as we saw more and more of the set, that Riveteer's art is 100% my brand, right? The working class, get your hands dirty, especially with some of the art featuring big orange wrenches in it as well. I was like, oh my God, you are like literally talking my language on this one. And then like the power to the people thing as well, the rising of the working class, like that always resonates incredibly well with me too. And we'll get a little bit more into the flavor of this as well. But I do want to say that we've already hit our first milestone for the night. We have hit the $100 milestone.
Let's
just
go.
minutes into the round table. You are all fantastic here, which means we'll be giving away at least one precon at the end of the night too. For every $100 we hit, we'll be adding another precon to that giveaway. I think we hit what was it, $700 for our last round table. So if we can get anywhere near that tonight, folks, of course, every little bit helps, and you're all amazing already. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for all being so generous, of course. All right. So diving into some of our questions for some of our panel here today. The story has been released in a different way for sets since our last set, Neon Dynasty. And they've continued that trend here through New Capenna, where we've been getting more about the background and the flavor of the set and more about these families in particular before we saw any cards from the set as well. How did that resonate with you? Does that make you more invested in the set, or does that take a little bit away from the set being revealed as you see cards? Clay, what do you think about that?
I think that it's I think that it's a better way to roll it out, or at least this time them rolling it out that way increased my investment in a set that I thought it was going to be cool, but like coming off of Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, which was like the set I've been most excited about for like 18 months. And when it came out and the art and everything, I was like, this is my favorite set in the 7-8 years of Magic that I've been playing. And I don't know how I'm going to not just be crushingly disappointed going forward from here, right? And as this story comes out and not having cards to put to these stories yet and being drawn in that way through the story and them building a world that way, I actually like I was really into that, and like the main story and then the side story, like I thought that was really cool, really cool way to roll it out. And I'm excited to, I don't know if it'll be as effective in places we've been before. That's something I'll be interested to see when we go back someplace. But as far as introducing somewhere new, I really loved it.
Fantastic. Jake, what did you think? Did it get you more hooked into the set, seeing or at least hearing about some of the flavor, some of the background, some of the story before seeing the cards?
I would say so. It's interesting, like you said. I think it's more effective when we're not as used to the plane, or at least we're not familiar with it, because your mind starts to speculate, and you kind of, and that's an interesting thing. When you tell me, oh, we're going to Dominaria, I already have some ideas of what we're going to see. Where you say, hey, we're going to go to this place, and all I'm going to give you is demons, crime families, and like 1920s esque mobster vibes, and my brain is just like thinking of all these different things, I don't know what to expect. That kind of gets me excited, and then when I see the set, I think even if all those ideas weren't fully met, like just seeing some of my ideas coming to fruition, like, oh, I knew there was going to be vehicles, like of course I called that, like I almost feel like I'm affirmed, that way. But the less you know about the plane, the more you can speculate, and the more likely you are to kind of make one of those guesses that gets confirmed later, and then you get excited and you feel like, oh wow, I kind of called it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And seeing things like, a character's name dropped in the backstory and saying, "Oh, I wonder if they get a card, or I wonder what their card looks like." To me, like that's some of those teasers that kind of gets the speculation train rolling.
Sure.
Rachel, what did you think about the rollout? Are you more invested when you hear more about the background before you see the cards?
I will say that I'm not usually a big reader of the fiction, so it didn't affect me personally, but I really do like releasing the fiction as a part of the red carpet. Um, and just building anticipation of the set and building awareness of the set. Um, and it really lets the fiction sort of stand on its own, where it's not competing with individual card design and everybody, like all the discussion surrounding new card designs and new um, keywords and all that's on Twitter. So it does get its own moment for people to talk about it and have it be in the limelight for players who are invested in that part of the process. So I appreciate that it gets a little moment in the sun, even if it's not specifically my cup of tea.
Fantastic. Absolutely. And Ken, what do you think? Get you more invested?
I also am not the biggest reader of the lore. I generally identify most with new mechanics. Like I'm pretty spiky, so I'm like, show me the cards that do crazy stuff, or the art. And I won't say I'm an older Magic player, but as someone who started playing kind of near the top, I'm always on the lookout for kind of like art that's a little bit askance from the normal styles that we see, the kind of like realistic, mimetic, fantasy stuff. I'm like, ooh, that reminds me of like, like the Foglios and like the artists who are just kind of weirdly doing their own thing. So that's sort of where I look to latch on to new sets. But that said, I also am kind of a loudly Italian American person. So I was like, oh, it's going to be the crime set. Like, okay. And like, it's going to be like the Deco crime set. So I did appreciate seeing teases of that before the cards came out, because I think this felt to me, and it was like a very top-down set. So it's like, okay, top-down, that makes sense. Roll out the little bits of lore that y'all sort of got excited about as game designers that led you into the mechanics rather than the mechanics leading you up to the themes or whatever. So I think it made sense with the nature of the set, and it also sort of piqued my interest to be like, okay, how many Godfather references are we going to see? and we got a good amount, so it makes me happy.
Absolutely. So let's talk about that then. You mentioned that this is a top-down designed set, meaning that often the designers of the set will start with card names or card concepts and then design what the card means around that. So they'll start with something like Sleep with the Fishes, a very stereotypical saying if you're thinking about a setting like this, or you're thinking about a background like this, and then they'll decide, what does that card do? So they work backwards from the name of the card or the concept of the card and design it from there. Do any of you prefer that kind of design, or do you prefer working from the mechanics up to what the card means? We've kind of been seeing this along the lines of a few sets recently with things like Strixhaven and even Neon Dynasty, where they've been starting with set concepts and then building cards to fit the world and the setting. Does that make for a better set, in your opinion? Does that make for something that you like better? Rachel, what do you think?
I love top-down design. I like cards that are specifically for the top-down design. One of my favorite Magic cards is Floodgate, which is a terrible Magic card that it is based on like a wall that's holding back, a flood of water, and I think it makes the designers more creative. I think it makes the cards more fun. I think it makes you engage with the flavor of the set better when the top-down design is stronger and clearer. Something that I really appreciate just from my background is the top-down design in this set is very funny. And what I appreciate about it is that it gives people who aren't necessarily funny and it injects jokes into their playgroup. So it gives you funny moments into your game that are special and that you get to laugh about. If there's a counter spell that's "I'll make you an offer you can't refuse," and everybody knows you do a joke, and that's a silly little voice, and that's a silly little moment, So I like that it brings a fun moment to any Magic table, specifically Commander, because I'm more Commander focused, but that's the kind of stuff my friends like to do anyway. So to having cards that are sort of leading in that direction, where they lead to a funny flavor moment, or you can be like, oh, I've got a limo that pulls up and it picks up my demon or whatever. Like that's great. That's a hilarious moment. That's a fun thing for you to laugh with your friends about. And I really appreciate the attention to detail in that way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like with brass knuckles, where if you get a
Huge.
pair of them,
Yeah.
they have double strike. You give them the old 1/2, right? Like that kind of stuff is always a ton of fun. I agree. Jake, what do you think? Top down sets.
Oh yeah, so I kind of wanted to play off of what Rachel was saying there. I think top down on an individual card basis, you get some real gems. Like we got, like you said, some cards that are just so flavorful and funny, and like I mean, just even like on the nose, like you said, like "I'm making an offer you can't refuse." Like, who would have thought that that would have been a Magic card? Is this what Richard Garfield want? I don't know. It's fun though, and it's cool and it's awesome. Where I kind of have, and again, I think top down is great. Where I think it is maybe a little bit weaker is in certain cohesions within the set. I'm specifically thinking of each family's mechanic, right? I To me, the mechanics, they make enough sense, but they don't feel like it does feel like something that they thought about after the fact, that they had these families and these cards and stuff, and it's like, okay, well, I guess we're gonna make Cabaretti about tokens and stuff. The mechanics, as far as like I didn't even know this. The Cabaretti mechanic is allegiance. I didn't even know that was like what it was called, and I don't know how that really plays into the lore or anything. So I think on an individual card basis, a lot of these top-down designs work really, really well. I feel like sometimes it can hurt the cohesion of mechanically, when that's I don't want to say an afterthought, but that's not where the inception of the set came from.
Entirely fair. Absolutely. Ken, what do you think?
I also am a big fan of Magic when it's really silly. Like something I think about a lot as a Commander player is probably the most fun day of non-Commander Magic I've had in my life was when me and the homies at the LGS played my cube, which is just jam-packed full of silver bordered cards and alternate win conditions and very silly things. So we had people chaos orbing and buying each other booster packs for booster tutor and like rock paper scissoring, and I was like, this is great. And the mood was so light, and I think I prefer that sort of levity of spirit with sets and not like the kind of edgelordy, like, look at how serious and intense this is. I'm like, I can go get serious and intense elsewhere for my taste. I like the kind of the silliness, the more like experimental, cultural, riffy attitude. So I like that a lot here. I also mechanically, I think I have kind of a broad sense of what each family's shard does, but to me, this set doesn't really stand out as like a super distinct mechanical portrait. To me, it's just sort of like, okay, they wanted to do crime stuff and deco, and then they also happened to print a ton of cards that were good for Commander players, and that's what this is for me, at least.
Absolutely. Clay, what do you think?
Yeah, I think when I look at the, like, since I've been playing Magic, my favorite sets are pretty much always the top-down design, like the flavor, the cohesion between the stories of the cards is more engaging for me than just purely, hey, this is a Magic set with powerful Magic cards. Every card, follows the rules of Magic and does things, but the flavor, like the Modern Horizons style sets, like the supplemental sets and stuff, where it's just like there's cards from everywhere, and like there are archetypes within the set, but it's not like a world within the set. And I do think that I don't know necessarily that this is the most mechanically distinct or like inventive set, but I think that each shard got a little extra added to it, kind of like a, hey, we kind of know what these 3 color pairings do, here's that plus like a little something. Or hey, we're gonna do that, but we're gonna do that like kind of turn to 11. like everybody was like, all right, Naya, the Cabaretti, we're going to get tokens. Like, please give us something different. And they were like, no, we're going to give you tokens, but it's going to be wild. Like, the tokens can be other tokens. And the number of tokens increases the power of the spells that you cast. And this, and all of a sudden you're just like, oh, okay, cool. Like hell yeah. Like that's or like the Obscura, when it was like the moment I realized that there's this, or not the Obscura, sorry, the Brokers, with this like the counters matters. You're like, oh, all right, cool, shield counters, it's kind of like a better indestructible, that's cool. And then it was like, oh wait, you could just move the counters, and then depending on the counters, other things get other counters, and then and you're like, all right, what can I build here? Like all of a sudden, and then you get to go back at Magic and look at all of the counters matters cards that maybe didn't have a place in most decks, and all of a sudden this card looks really cool because it's got a really weird, I just I like when flavor takes the lead and then they find mechanics to try to fit it. Just as my personal predilection. So
Absolutely. And then Chris pulled up Perry down here, who
Perry the Pulverizer.
kills me.
Pulverizer.
Kills me as far as a name goes.
Perry's such a soft, nice name.
Right.
And he's pulverized. He's pulverized everyone who's made fun of his name.
Yeah, right. That's how he got the name the Pulverizer, right? Yeah. You know it. Like they called him that in high school when he beat up his first kid for making fun of him for being named Perry, right? But Perry is one of the first Bant commanders that I've ever taken a look at and been like, I want to brew this color combination. Normally, and I said it months and months ago, Bant is, for me, the most boring color combination. And I said, please do something other than counters. But then they said, we'll do counters, but we'll do counters in a way you've never thought of before. And to me, that was like, you hooked me.
I love the emphasis on different kinds of counters. I think that's incredibly cool, and that really gets a brewer's mind going.
Absolutely. Like I saw that, and I spent 90 minutes with chat brewing around that card, just saying, what are the weirdest counters that we can do in Magic?
Musician, it's finally the moment.
Right.
Something
oh,
I
go
did
ahead.
want to mention about the flavor specifically is what I really like about these cards specifically being so memorable for Commander players is that it encourages players to pick a card that may not be the best card for the slot, but is the funniest card for the slot, or does like create a cool moment where you're like, I'm going to cut counterspell and I'm going to throw in this funny counterspell because it's like these strong flavor reasonings. It really rewards players for thinking flavor forward when they're building, which is a cool consideration for a commander at large.
Absolutely. Being able to build with that flavor in mind is something that a lot of people, especially newer people to the format, might not ever think of. But when you get a set that is very flavorful and flavor forward and concept forward, it does get those gears turning, having you looking at things in a way that you never have before. Jake, you had a point as well.
Sorry, my dog's chewing a bone in the background, so I was muting for a second. He's like, but what's it called? I kind of want to touch with what Clay was saying. It reminds me so much, and I was lucky enough to be on this panel when we did Strixhaven, and we talked about how we took color pairings that we've seen before, but Wizards thought, okay, how can we take what people usually associate with these colors and expand on it, right? And I think we kind of talked about, and I don't remember all who was there. I know Clay was there. I know Mechanic was there. I think I was gonna say I think Rachel was there too. We talked about how Lorehold, like, oh my gosh, everyone was kind of like, oh, Boros only does one thing and whatnot. But then to expand on there and add things like graveyard synergies and artifact synergies was such a breath of fresh air. It reinvigorated that color pairing and really kind of broke our preconceived notions of what those colors meant. And it sounds like that happened for you for the band color pairing with like Perry and stuff like that. So kudos to them for, not necessarily reinventing the wheel, but making a more efficient wheel or just even a cooler wheel. I don't know, putting spinners on it, I'm taking these colors that we've seen before that we love and expanding on what they can do.
Absolutely. Clay, something to add?
I just like when Rachel was talking about flavorful cards maybe inspiring deck building choices and people get moving away from maybe the best card to something that's funny. A card that jumped to my mind from like the first day I saw it, I hadn't thought about it since then until just now, but there's the red creature Sizzling Soloist. And that card is probably going to go in like every token deck. And it is a good effect when a creature enters, target creature can't block. And then if you do it again, then it goads that creature. So like it does have a good effect. But I'm probably going to run it in a lot of decks, and I'm not going to be running it because of that effect. I'm running it because that art is hilarious to me. And I love that card. And it has nothing to do with its magic ability.
Right? Just a dude playing a trombone? Hell yeah.
So well. He's so hot at it.
He's going like these cats are cooking. Let's go.
He's just blowing, baby, and everybody's mesmerized. Like, it's great.
Yeah.
Also, if you don't stop for a moment and be like, okay, yeah, as a planeswalker, you just summoned a jazz musician into the middle of a battlefield. That's incredible. That's so fun.
Dragons and krakens and a dude with a trombone.
That's great.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
Also the implications, like you think about like, yeah, you're planeswalkers battling planeswalkers, but like anybody going to New Capenna for the first time, right? You come from Ikoria or somewhere, and then like you walk into this building and that guy is just going, and you're like, where the fuck am I? Like, what is happening?
Absolutely.
What is this jazz?
Yeah. Also, it does make me want to build a Zephi deck.
Oh yeah, Zephi musicians. Come on,
you can add him to the orchestra.
Exactly. Yep. That'd be so sweet.
For sure. Ken, what do you think about some of this? About some of the weird design and weird flavor and how it gets the deck builder thinking?
Well, now I'm haunted by the idea of the trombone player lighting his entire audience on fire So I think I'm just going to be thinking about that for a while.
Put them in a Rakdos deck now.
Yeah,
Like-
yeah. It's true. It's absolutely true. No, I mean, I think that it is a great opportunity for people to think about flavor. I think the set did a pretty good job, at least in my eyes, both as like a pretty whatever entrenched insider baseball-y CDH brewer and player, but also like a pretty committed casual brewer and player. The set did a pretty good job of scratching both edges. You know, there are the sizzling soloists, and there are a lot of them, but there are also the professional face breakers, and there are quite a few of those too. And so it's like I'm a fan of sets that can accommodate both urges of like, I want to do flavor, I want to do theme, lore, comedy, humor, whatever, story, narrative, but also I want to do mechanics and synergies, and you know, like I want both, and I think the set does a good job of providing both.
Absolutely. But before we get on to talking about the cards themselves, there is one more lore thing that I do want to talk about, and it's kind of the elephant in the room about this set, kind of what got this set off on an awkward foot, and that is the whole Halo thing. We were teased with Halo, and Halo being this miracle substance, and speculation ran wild. And then we were told that at the premiere and the pre-release to encourage drinking Halo and having Halo at parties, but never in martini glasses, and that it wasn't angels and it was going to be anything but angels. And then lo and behold, it's angels, like everybody thought it would be. Is that something that just ended up being weird? Was that a misstep on Wizards' part here from like a PR standpoint? What do we think, Clay?
I think it was just awkward. I think ultimately it wasn't that big of a deal. It was kind of like an unforced error, right? Where like they come out, they give us this preview, and they're like, it's this miracle substance, da 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 da. Everybody's like, ha, drugs, it's angels, and then they're like, no, it's not that. No, it's not that. Don't stop that. This is a game for everybody. Stop that. Hey, have some fun with your pre-release, but like, make sure it's inclusive. Make sure it's all ages. Da 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 da. Everybody's like, all right, cool, fine. And then they were like, guess what? It's angels, and our treasure depictions of it show it in martini glasses, and people drinking it as explicitly that. And it's like, if I don't know, I feel like if at the beginning they'd have just kind of been, even if they didn't lead with Halo as like one of the first introductions to the set, if they just like rolled it out with the story instead of giving us weeks to like, the Magic Twitter community, right, is going to like any little bit that you give us, we're just going to turn and just tear into pieces. And so it just felt like an unforced error to me. Like, if ultimately I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but it was just kind of awkward.
Yeah.
But it did get our friends a preview card. So shout out Hoth.
Absolutely, for sure. Yeah, Jake, you had something to add.
I was gonna kind of add that I think it was pretty easy, for someone to foresee that there was definitely going to be association with like contraband and potential drug use and whatnot, and I think they should have maybe acknowledged that and approached it in a more mature way rather than denying, well, it's not this and it's not that, and then, well, all signs point to, I'm just saying that yes, this is a substance, and I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm not. I know it says it's a 13 and plus game. There's people who play that are younger than that. I think there's a mature and a responsible way to approach more mature matters. Clearly they approach violence and they talk about that in a way that's not necessarily offensive or, too shocking. So I think when you're talking about substances and whatnot, there is there's a way they could have approached it and handled that without just trying to it's not this, but all signs point to it being this, kind of addressing it, if you will, being a little bit more open with it. Like, yes, this is a substance. There's some allegory there, but there needs to be a conversation about that. And, I feel like they were trying to get ahead of it with don't encourage necessarily the use of this or putting this into your drinks and whatnot. But you're kind of getting mixed messages when you're getting this strict, like, it's not this, but it's on the card, and it's like, okay, it's on the card, maybe acknowledge that and then have a conversation about that and handle it, a little bit more upfront.
Absolutely. And a warning on the tin that would just say Wizards does not endorse or encourage the consumption of alcohol, right? And just leave it at that and let Halo be what it is. And what they've depicted it as in the set, I think would have been a little bit easier to swallow, no pun intended. Ken, what do you think?
I think after having done a little homework about it today and having read Mark Rosewater's little blog post being like, no, we're not interested in, illicit substances. This is just a something that enhances magic use. I think the WotC folks need to expand their definition of what a drug is and can be, since they are really good drug dealers. I mean, like from the very beginning, Garfield is like, this game is a virus that takes over your brain. They are peddling like a highly addictive gambling thing, and I'm for it. Like, I'm an adult, I'm making that decision, but I don't think that they need to like get like, oh no, a drug in my game. Like, look at Cut of the Prophets. Look at that card. That has somebody being like a human body being dismantled with like pliers and being the head held down. There's blood on the fingers. Like, this game can handle, I think, a little drug as a treat, like, I think flavor wise, it has dealt with and depicted a lot of gruesome, complicated, troublesome stuff. And I think it's okay to be like, hey, it's a crime world. A lot of people there's like a drug that they want. Like, so what? Okay, sure. You're like, just go for it. I don't know. I just was a little kind of like whatever and eye rolly at the fact that they're like, oh no, not a drug. It's like, understand what you're doing, Wizards.
Rachel, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm gonna say, do it or don't.
Yeah.
Like, you either put it in the cards and be like, yeah, they're gangsters. They're dealing in illicit drugs and they're murdering people and they're burying people in cement shoes, and like, that's part of the world. Like, do it, or just don't include it at all. If you're gonna wimp out about it and you don't want to include it and you're worried about the PR of it, then don't do it.
Yeah.
Nobody needed it. You didn't have to have it. You could have had people with martinis and nobody would have asked any questions. You brought it up. You guys brought it up.
You made it
we
weird.
Didn't bring it up.
What is it? What does South Park call it? The Streisand effect? The more you say don't talk about it, the more people want to talk about it.
It's so weird. It was so weird that they were like, guys, we have drugs. They're not drugs. They're drugs. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
I think Wizards absolutely bungled the introduction of it. They bungled the inclusion of it. They you just have to make a choice and a stance, and they didn't. They wanted to have their drugs and eat them too. And
we do not endorse eating your drugs here, folks.
It was. I don't
Not
know.
today
I
of
thought
all
it
days.
was the whole deal, and there was a lot of people on Twitter that were like, "Well, we can't talk about drugs with kids around," and you're like, "These are gangsters. Murder. There's a card called murder."
Yeah.
Like,
Sleep with the Fishes
Yeah.
has a guy wrapped in plastic wrap being submerged in water. Like,
Isn't there a
It
corpse
shows- it
explosion
shows-
card?
we're there. We're already there. Like, there was a lot of people that really held their nose at the whole drug thing, and I thought that was weird. And then Wizards really freaked out about it, and I thought that was weird. And it just, everybody, if you were that worried about it, just don't include it. Nobody
Sure.
made you.
yeah. And don't make it a cornerstone of your set if you don't want people to
Don't
make
send
that
it
logical
out to
leap.
all of your influencers, you weirdos.
It's not drugs. Put this in your drink.
Like, yeah.
In your champagne
have
glass.
The vial of it, they sent me a champagne glass and a container of Halo dust.
I
Like,
bet there's a lot of sugar in that product that they sent you.
Yeah.
I wonder what sugar is or could be. That's
Yeah.
weird. That's weird.
Y'all.
Strange.
Yeah, it was weird.
Place on the NAD.
I agree with Rachel. I thought that kind of like the approach was weird, and then the response was weird, and it was just kind of like a weird situation all around. The one thing that I that got brought up and I thought was a cool like, or not a cool, an important thing to note, and that kind of got lost in the noise was, while we're still going through everything with, the world, the state of the world, the pandemic and everything, like the open punch bowl at pre-release events and stuff seemed like a kind of a poor idea. Like that, like just from a like ignoring it's drug and no, it's not drug, it's a drug, da, 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 like all of that stuff that just like, okay, maybe we don't have communal drinking vessels and like all of this stuff right
Not at
now.
all.
Like,
Yeah,
like it,
I
yeah.
You've seen the bathroom at your LGS. Don't drink any of the open liquids.
Exactly.
What is
exactly.
wrong with you? No matter what's in it or what it's pretending to be, don't drink a bowl of juice at your LGS.
Well, and encouraging having open liquids around Magic cards as well. Like, forget the health concerns, but just the paranoia of people having open drinks around their cards too. Like, that's all of that are just, why was this the direction that they chose to go in with it? I think that we can all agree that even with the setting being based on the Roaring Twenties and Prohibition being a big part of that setting, I think the way that they simultaneously leaned into and away from Halo as a cornerstone of the set was a major misstep.
And yeah, with the prohibition stuff, I think there could have been like that theme, that time in history and stuff. Like there could have been a cool story element to like Halo and a like prohibition and all of that stuff versus just being like, this is the valuable substance and everybody's hoarding it. You know what I mean? Versus like we could have had speakeasies and the bootlegger, like there could have been a whole flavor aspect among different cards and doing stuff that just kind of didn't get explored, because instead of like actively selling it and distributing and doing all this stuff, it was just like, nah, this is mine. Like everybody's fighting to just hold as much as they can. That was kind of, I don't know. It felt like a weird choice.
Yeah, less prohibition, more arms race with it, with everybody stockpiling, right?
I also think this is not a concept that fantasy fiction consumers are unfamiliar with, right? Like Halo is spice. That's not like that's not a new concept. This is something we've seen before. It surprised me how much weird blowback there was to it, in that this is like a pretty cliche substance that like we hadn't seen in Magic before, but we've seen in fantasy before. So I think generally it shouldn't have been a big deal, and the way that Wizards introduced it and the way that it was really centralized, especially in the rollout, made it into a problem that it would never have been.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we're all on the same page about that too. All right, so we're gonna get into actual cards, actual mechanics, what we want to brew, how things have been handled in just a second. But I do want to remind everybody that we are still taking donations for Trans Lifeline. You can hit Command Donate in chat in order to donate. Every increment of $5 gets you into a draw for prizes that we'll do at the end of the night, ranging from Infinite Tokens prize packs to Arena prize packs to precons from Streets of New Capenna as well. In fact, it looks like we're just $25 away from our $200 goal, which adds another precon to the prize draw as well. So get those donations in. Closer to the end of the night, we will be doing that draw. For everybody who's donated so far, thank you so much. But every dollar helps this fantastic cause. Thank you, everyone. Okay. We are going to be doing Q&A closer to the end of the night as well. So if you do have questions, start prepping them up. There is a special redemption in chat for just a single channel point to highlight your message for Q&A. We'll get to that a little bit closer to the end of the night. But if you do have questions for us, we will answer those questions later. All right. Okay, so getting into what I think resonates just a little bit more with many of us here is some of the actual cards themselves. What do they do mechanically? What are we going to brew with them? What gets our minds moving here? So I want to go around the table and I want to ask everybody from the set, either from the core set of Streets of New Capenna or the set booster exclusive cards or the Commander Precon exclusive cards. God, there are like 400 new cards coming out right now. Which are your favorite? Which are getting your mind moving right now? Ken, let's start with you.
Okay, good. So I have a million tabs pulled up, but I've narrowed it down. So from the main set, I think the commander to me that's most pleasing is Jetmir. I like the idea of a Naya tokens go wide commander that also can just do real big punchies when the commander resolves. So I like the flavor. It's a cat demon. How are you not going to like a cat demon? My cats are demons. I feel like flavor wise, they got it exactly right. So I think that commander is lots of fun. From the commander exclusive cards, I really like, and I just found this looking at cards tonight, and I'm like, oh my God, no, another deck I have to build. I really like the Beamtown Bullies. I think that's a super cool commander. I love the idea. It's like graveyard and tomb shenanigans, but also goad stuff and also giving opponents stuff for fun and profit. Like, I love that. And I'm already like, I just have been thinking about the deck in the back of my mind while we've all been talking. So a list will probably emerge soon. And then just in terms of like regular old cards, I love this name, and I also happen to love it as a card for higher power / competitive decks. Like, Professional Facebreaker is one of my favorite names, I think, of a Magic card I've ever encountered. It's so good and brutal and just blunt. And the card itself is ridiculously good. So I like that card a lot. And then Tenuous Truce from the Commander only set, I also love. To me, it's like so political. It's card draw in white. It's low to the ground mana value wise, so players will be able to cast it easily and often. I think that card is excellent and the flavor's nice. But then there are just like a ton of cards that are great and enjoyable, like An Offer You Can't Refuse. What's not to love? You know, like that's like the slogan of my people. So I gotta like it. I gotta find a home for it. And I think that there's also a lot of amazing art in the set. I'm really glad to see like Donata Giancola getting more work and producing stuff like Getaway Car. Like the extended art Getaway Car just looks so interesting, and I feel like stylistically like presents a deco futurism that I don't think we've seen this precise style even in like Kaladesh and stuff. Like I just think the shapes on that card are really interesting. And Obscura Interceptor, that style is gorgeous to me. There are just a ton of cards with great art. Like I could go on and on about the like deco frame treatments, and like Disciplined Duelist is also gorgeous. There's a lot of art that's really beautiful. But I think that those 4 cards are probably mechanically the most appealing to me.
Fantastic. Yeah, tons to wrap your head around from a brewing perspective. Where are you using those? And I know you being more competitively minded as well are looking at those. What fits into lower curve, more aggressive? What can I do that's going to, play into the CEDH meta kind of thing as well? So always appreciate that viewpoint from you on this, Ken. Rachel, one of the best brewers I know. What has your gears turning here?
So there's a couple colors I'm missing in my personal library. So I was paying special attention to Jund commanders and to Esper commanders, because those are the 2 I do not have. Bant is firmly taken. Grix is taken. So I can kind of close the doors to those. There's some cards that I'm really excited about. I love Getaway Car. I think it's really powerful, and it's a great way to protect your board. It's a great way to use reuse ETBs. And it's just like some really great flavor. That was one of the cards that was most excited about in the 99. As a brewer, I really loved Rocco, Cabaretti Caterer. Because Rocco presents the opportunity to have a non-legendary creature in the command zone.
Yep.
So the first thing I was looking at when I saw Rocco was like, all right, who are we getting? Who's the deck actually built around? And you can do really fun things with Brash Taunter or Stuffy Doll or any number of like non-legendary creatures in the 99 that you're like, I want to brew around, but haven't had the opportunity to legally before. So I really liked the design on Rocco, especially for non-competitive brewers. There's a lot of uncommons I was psyched about. Rob the Archives is incredibly powerful. I, as a casual spike, don't tell anybody, I'm really psyched about Glittering Stockpile because it's a very powerful 3 mana rock. That you cast on 3, you start banking some more mana, and you can pop it for a whole bunch of mana at the end. I love the incentive to slow down ramp just a little bit, and they've been doing it for a while, but this one is one of the bigger payoffs that I've seen lately. So I'm psyched about that one. In terms of, one more uncommon. I loved Rumor Gatherer. This is an uncommon white draw spell, which is where I really want to see the power for white is in the common and uncommon slot. I think we have a tendency to make rare extremely overpowered white cards, and where I really want to see is the depth for white. Because like if you make a white deck, your staples are $40.
Yep.
So building with these uncommon cards that are closer to $1 and being able to build budget and white is really exciting and great. From the cards I'm looking at, brewing, I like Bess, Soul Nourisher. She is strictly a better commander than Esmira, and I'm a little heartbroken to switch Esmira to Bess, but it would be nice to be able to close a single game. So I liked Bess a whole lot. And then I was looking at both Vazi and Henzi in the Jund space, which is the Henzi's the Blitz commander that you can sneak creatures into play and get reduced cost for the length of the game. I liked that was a new thing that they included on like a couple cards. Is the longer the game goes, the more powerful the card gets, which is very smart. A huge handshake to the designers on that kind of stuff. And I love Vazi because I really like cards that incentivize game actions for my opponents. That's my play style. It's a little squirrely and a little wily, and I love it.
Perfect. So it sounds like you're going to be brewing a few potential lists here.
I got a lot. I don't know.
Yeah. I like the idea of Rocco being like the new gold standard for secret commanders.
I loved
in
it.
there as well.
And it's a little expensive for it, which I appreciate.
Right.
It's not overpowered.
For me, who loves brewing around something like Academy Manufactor, to pay 6 to be able to tutor him out of the command zone as well. I mean, like, hey, pretty all right. I like that a lot. Jake, what do you think? Favorite cards from the set?
Yeah, so from a commander standpoint, I love Rafine, Scheming Seer, because I've played Verena for a long time, and the more and more I play it, the less zombie tribal I go, and the more like discard synergy and stuff that I like get into. And this just does that, and then I don't even need to play zombies anymore, right? It does a lot of that cool stuff. I like the connive mechanic. It's something very, like I said, it's taking something that was already there, like Verena's ability of attacking with zombies and drawing and discarding, and I guess in that case getting life. In this one you get the counters, and it's kind of expanding on it, making it a little bit more, you can do some different stuff with that and really take advantage of graveyard synergies and those discard synergies that you might have. I'm always a big fan of brewing the uncommon legends. I've loved uncommon legends because they're like cool, but they're not overpowered. They're not, I don't mean this to sound like any sort of way or whatever, but like they're not too easy to do. They're not too easy to break or kind of like Rachel was saying, we have a tendency of rare cards to be so pushed and so overpowered that to me it almost takes away some of the creativity, because you get your commander out and then suddenly your deck's doing everything, where these require a little bit of work. I'm thinking like Mr. Orfeo, which by the way is like just an awesome name. But whenever you attack, double target creature's power until end of turn, that's great. Are you gonna have different options for that? Are you gonna go wide? Are you gonna go one big creature? Again, I also just love this flavor text, talking about how he was jumped by Maestro agents and you can still see their imprints on the cement if you know where to look. Rocco, of course, like Rachel mentioned, another great one. Just something that you wouldn't expect, and that's probably the coolest one, I'll be honest. Like, it's just something that you wouldn't expect at the uncommon level is to be able to tutor and do these powerful effects. I really love those. What is it? I'm trying to pronounce it. Quiza, Augur of Agonies. Again, just giving you some payoff for something that your deck's probably already doing. But like I said, the floor is still high enough that I want to play these as my commander, but the ceiling isn't, so high that I'm like, oh, this is easy, and I already know exactly what cards are going to go on these. They still invite some creativity to make them efficient.
Fantastic. Yeah, it really gets the gears turning, especially with some of these uncommon commanders that they're releasing as well that do something that's just like a little bit of a niche of the colors that you haven't seen on a card before, and they don't give you quite the breadth that some of the rare or mythic commanders in the colors might do, but they do something special.
Yep.
The Boulder, Mr. Orfeo, the Boulder, I took a look at him and I said, I've brewed two different decks, a Golgari deck and a Gruul deck around doubling things. And now I can smash them both together and have a commander that's flavorful for it as well. And I'm like, this is perfect. Absolutely fantastic. And he's got one line of text on him, and that's all he needs on him. And I love simple commanders that are like that. Or they're just
words.
like, I know exactly the deck that fits into this. So, Clay, how about you? Favorite commanders or favorite cards in the set?
So I've been lucky to go last, and I've just been closing tabs as each of you talked about cards. And I was like, I have no way to narrow down 28 cards that I have selected out of these two sets. And then everybody was like, din, din, din. I'm just like, oh, thank goodness, thank goodness, thank goodness. I really quick though, like Jake brought up Quasar, the uncommon Obscura legend, and when I saw this printed, I had a tweet about it where I was so excited about it, and then I was like immediately sad because I was like, the deck that I would build around this isn't exactly a group, a pod friendly deck. This isn't like going to be like a fun deck, but like maybe we can work on it. Maybe we can figure out a way to do it. And then somebody pointed out that Quasar turns Peer into the Abyss, draw half your deck Aetherflux Reservoir somebody, and I was like life neutral, and I was like, all right, maybe I'm gonna do this once. I don't know how bad I'm gonna make it to like balance out getting to Peer to the Abyss somebody, but like that sounds hilarious. The two decks that I'm like locked in on building from day one on this, one of them is, so I talked about being Cabaretti, is from one of the alternate commanders, is the Fabine, Boss's Confidant. So it's the 6 mana 3/6 creature tokens you control have haste, and then it's got parlay. And I love this card. This card, kind of rewards going wide, doing token stuff, but like everybody's doing stuff. You also have information about what your opponents are doing, and like the flavor of that, like her being the confidant, so everybody's telling, they're like, oh yeah, this is what's happening, and you're getting to see the top cards of the deck. So like, there's a lot going on. I just love this card. I love the flavor of it. And then from the brokers, Rigo, Streetwise Mentor, which is one of the weird hybrid. Like technically it's banned, but you could cast it for mono white. White. 2/2. Counters matters, but also like dorks matter. I love decks like that, going wide, but like all the creatures have one power. And then like I started going on it with like, it was like Esper Sentinel and this and that, and I was like, I love this deck. This deck's gonna be so cool, and it's gonna go so fast. And then I was like, but what if this was secretly like an assault formation style deck, but not defenders? Like all of the cards that have like, they're like 1/6s or 0/5s, but they're not defenders, so they don't get to go into Arcades decks and this and that. What if we make this just like a love letter to a bunch of, because a lot of those are really cheaply costed to cast. It's like Aegis Turtle is like an 0/5 for 2. You can get there's the assault formation, or there's the white blue enchantment from Ravnica, and it's like a couple of those like things that you can do, or sorry, Aegis Turtle for 1, just a blue mana, you get an 0/5. And so like just silly things, even if you don't get Assault Formation out, you get to draw a card, but you're swinging somebody for 0, so you get to go do the kind of silly, haha, I'm going to swing you, and it doesn't do anything, but I swung you and I got to draw a card. I love that. I love this card. As other than commanders, so white got a ton of really, really good cards in this set. I mean, this feels like kind of the first real delivery on what's been promised for years of like there's been cards in the last couple sets that you're like, all right, I can kind of see it. I can kind of see it. Like I kind of see where we're going. But like the one I wanted to call out is Master of Ceremonies. This is from the commander, but it's a 3/4 for 4. And then it has at the beginning of your upkeep, you know, each opponent chooses between money, friends, or secrets, and you get either a treasure, a 1/1, or you get to draw a card, and the person, whatever their vote is, gets that as well. So it's like group hug, but you're getting a bunch of stuff. So, you know, if Ken chooses to get a treasure, I get a treasure. Chris chooses to get a citizen, I get a citizen, Chris gets a citizen. And then, you know, if Jake chooses to draw a card, I get to draw a card. So I'm up 1 of each, whereas each of my opponents are a third, you know? So it's white getting to move ahead, but doing it in a way that still kind of rewards the table. I love that card. Exotic Pets. I love the 1/1 unblockable fish token idea in this set. Oh, of course, Chris. But I love this, getting to put all the weird counters on them as well. Seems great. The fish are hilarious. There's that Kraken that makes the fish. That seems wild. And then what's the other card that I have up here? Oh, this one's like strictly from a flavor perspective. The Dodgy Jalopy. Yeah, this card's hilarious to me. Like we were talking about the getaway car earlier and stuff, and like the just grungy. It still runs somehow, but it's on cement blocks. Like in the art, like it's got scavenge. When I saw that, I was like, wait, hold on, where's it scavenge again? Like there's just so much fun stuff about that card. And then a card that I really like, but I'm sad we're not like back to playing Commander in person a lot yet, is Turf War. Seems like such a fun card, such a wild, like it's enchantment, and like as you swing people, lands get to change hands. It feels like a nightmare for virtual, not one I want to keep up on, make everybody have to like have tokens for each of the lands if they pull it, but like in person, like if I can swing, I can go up 3 lands on combat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like there's a lot of fun stuff, and anytime you get to encourage combat in Commander, I love that. Like making people swing, you know, whether it's Goat or Monarch or things like rewarding people for going to the combat step is Commander that I enjoy playing.
Absolutely.
So I think those are the ones that I would shout out to the most. But this set, like I said, there's so many, especially tokens cards. There's a lot of really, really good go wide cards. I can't believe I didn't say Ginny Faye. The make tokens into cats or dogs.
Yeah, your tokens become cats and dogs.
I love that flavor.
Yeah. It's fantastic. There is a lot in the set that really gets going. I mentioned my love of Perry the Pulverizer earlier as well, and how I took a look at it and I was like, okay, brokers, you got me on this one. The other one, though, is Cross Defense Contractor, who is the in-the-box legend for the brokers precon. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you put shield counters on other people's stuff and goad them. And encourages you for putting counters on other people's stuff. And I think that that's just such a weird, like, why would I ever put a counter on an opponent's creature? So I just brewed around that, and I'm looking at all of these cards that I have never played before, or I've taken a look at and said, why would I ever want to play this? Because it puts 3+1/+1 counters on my opponent's creatures. Now it's so that they swing at my opponents and they don't have to attack me. And it's really unique. It's really fun. Clay, something to add?
What's the battle bond? There's that like
generous patron.
Yeah.
Thank you. I immediately could see it in my head, but I couldn't think of the name. And I wasn't immediately certain how I was going to search for it on Scryfall. Like if I was going to sit here quietly, I was like, I'm sure Chris definitely just saw it. He'll know it.
Yeah, literally the first card that I added to this
Oh,
deck
yeah.
was I'm
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
going to turn this downside into the biggest upside possible by drawing
it.
a card at very least on every upkeep with my commander.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Generous patron was
Generous
my
patron.
secret Kenrith tech.
Ooh.
That you pay 2 mana,
That's
draw a
cool.
card. Just draw.
Love
Draw.
it.
That's sweet.
But apart from those two, Luxior, Jada's gift, the equipment that gives something +1/+1 for each counter on it, but then turns things into creatures when they're on it.
So crazy.
This I immediately said I want to put this in decks and I want to do wild things with it. I said I want to put this on an Ozolith. I want to turn an Ozolith into a creature and just throw like every counter on everything onto the Ozolith. I said I want to throw this onto a Dark Depths and have like a 10/10 land swinging at people. This alone, this one card was like, what weird, wacky, wild stuff can I do with this one card? And like I spent 90 minutes with chat saying, let's make a Parry the Pulverizer deck with Luxior as our hidden commander in it, and then we're just animating stuff that comes into play with a million counters on it, so that we can make it into a creature and make it huge, right?
See, I'm a very simple person. I saw Luxior and I thought, I just want to give it to my nice dog Yoshimaru, and then have my nice dog have another sword to kill people with. Because it turns out, if you, I did this experiment lately. I was like, okay, I have a Yoshimaru and Kedis deck. It turns out if you just jam 69 legendary cards in a deck with Yoshimaru in the command zone, that dog gets real mean real fast. And then I get to ask every opponent who tries to remove it, are you really going to kill my dog right now? Like, is that you're gonna just kill a good boy? And it's good. It's good political. But yeah, that sword is crazy. Like I can see it going on Karn, of course, big Karn, and being like, oh my God, this is like a whatever 14, 7/7 or whatever.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I just want to make a big dog. That's all I want.
Throw Luxior on an Ugin, right? And
yeah, good lord.
+3 him every turn.
My boyfriend has a Grist deck.
Oh yeah.
And Grist puts 16 counters on itself, just like because it's Grist bugs. So it's if you put this sword on Grist, it's a win con. You can lose the game to this planeswalker.
Yeah.
One that nobody mentioned that I actually have seen nobody post about, which is shocking, is Aerial Extortionist.
Yes.
I
actually posted about it this afternoon.
Did you? I missed it. This card is incredible.
Yes, absolutely.
This is a 5-mana card that repeatedly removes stuff and draws a lot of cards.
Yeah. The fact that it's draw whenever an opponent casts a spell from anywhere other than their hand.
Yeah, like first of all, you should be playing Ghostly Pilferer. You just should. If you're not, you should be. But Aerial Extortionist is a Ghostly Pilferer plus something that when it ETBs or deals damage, which is 4/3 in the sky, it's going to deal damage. Remove something temporarily. It's a huge tempo hit in white. It feels like a real bomb that people are going to undervalue and shouldn't.
Yeah, the thing that I loved about it is that ETB and damage trigger can target your stuff as well. If you want to recast your own permanents too.
Your spirited companion or whatever. Yeah.
Right. They get those ETBs over and over again. Even if you just want to pseudo untap a creature, right?
Yeah.
Exile it, recast it. It's real good. Clay, you had something to add too.
Oh, I was just laughing about the Luxior, how silly, how ridiculous can this get? And Lenny, Will, and I put together a way to make Luxior the creature and equip planeswalkers to Luxior with Bludgeon Brawl. Yeah. and so the sword picks up Garuk or Sarkhan or whoever, and then that just the moment we saw it, we went just the worst possible way, like flavorfully hilarious, but like mechanically or like how actually practical or effective is this? It's not at all. But this is the like a sword picking up Jace is objectively the funniest possible sequence that could happen in Magic to me.
Absolutely. Oh, an absolute riot, and that just is a testament to the card to say this card enables these weird, wacky things, and the fact that so many people saw it and have been like, "What can I do with this? What's the weirdest thing that I can turn into a creature with this?"
Mm-hmm.
I love seeing it. As a brewer, I love it for myself, but I love it when other people take it into these weird directions. Those are the best cards, in my opinion. So some of the other cards that I like are some of the treasure cards. I have a treasure deck. I know a lot of people that have treasure decks. There is a lot of treasure in this set. I know a lot of people like Smuggler Stash or Bootlegger Stash. Sorry, which is the 6 mana artifact or enchantment that is tap a land to put a treasure into play. Really simple. Another one of these like one line of text cards that is still really, really good. But I also like one of the exclusives out of the precons, Reign of Riches is one that I really like. It's a red enchantment that immediately makes 2 treasures for you. But whenever you cast something with treasure mana, Cascade,
Oh, it's sweet.
it's
That's
so
cool.
good.
So
Yeah,
good.
I saw that
Like-
one too.
Like that is really good. And like I have a $50 treasure deck, and as long as this doesn't creep up over like $10, I will make room for it in that deck so that I can cast a 2-drop with a treasure and go like get a soul ring out of my deck. Hey, that's what I want to do with these things. But I know that a lot of people are going to be like, I'm going to Dockside Extortionist and then like cascade through my entire library, which is entirely possible too. But there really seems to be a theme in this set of treasures. There are a lot of cards that generate treasures. It is a 3-color set, so it's kind of been the crutch for color fixing in this set. But more and more, we're seeing that there are more and more synergies for treasures, more and more ways to use treasures, and treasures feel less unique than they first were when they were introduced. Before we get to a discussion about that, I do want to shout out that we've hit our second goal for the night as well, our second donation goal, which means a second precon
250.
is going to be
Hello.
added. Oh, we've hit 250, so we're $50 away from our third goal, our third precon being added to the raffle as well. So thank you everybody for donating again. Amazing thanks here. We are going to keep going. So if we can keep that ball rolling, let's get that ball rolling. But we are going to talk about treasures briefly here as well. There are a lot of cards that create treasures. Treasures have started to become a topic of concern for a lot of people. I know is a little bit of the discourse earlier, but treasures. Do we feel that they're being overused? Do we feel like they've lost some of the identity that they had when they were first introduced? And are they just going to become too good if they're printed in this frequency in coming sets? Clay, what do you think?
I don't think that treasures are necessarily quite the boogeyman that they've been made out to be. I think that if we continue to like have very good or very strong or very unique kind of like a bunch of different style treasure cards and a bunch of different stuff, like even like I think a really cool way to use the treasures is like stimulus package in this set. But I think that like the more and more treasure cards that come out, existing treasure matters cards, right, just kind of continue to get stronger as you like kind of just like fill out more archetypes can use treasures, more archetypes care. But I just in my experience, and you know, this is coming from playing at a more at a lower power level than, you know, like I'm rarely at the CEDH level, and even in below CEDH, typically I'm playing somewhere in between. What's the like nitro casual? Is that the and like precons, right? I'm playing like somewhere in there, and I think for the most part, in my, you know, at least in my experience, treasures are mostly like a catch up a catch-up mechanic that allow people to either get even or kind of go a little bit ahead, but I don't typically see them abused in the way that, like, I know you can use Dockside Extortionist to, right, you can do a Dockside Extortionist loops and then create all the treasure and then cast your deck, and then you can just like go from there. And that's something that can be done. But and at least in my opinion, I don't think we're close yet. And I think that I also think we're going to start seeing cards that slow down treasures, would be my prediction in upcoming sets. I think we're going to start seeing things that are going to, like even in this set, we started to see like there's cards that create treasures, but the treasures are tapped.
Yeah.
And like it feels like the natural counter response, right? We jump into treasures. The next step is how do we answer the treasure generators?
Yeah.
All right.
How do we make that needle swing back the other way?
Right. How do we make that needle swing back the other way? Or do we just go into Baldur's Gate and then Brothers War and we don't see a treasure card for a couple, like, a year? All right, cool.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if we did that either.
For sure. Rachel, your thoughts on the subject, and we aren't going to hold you to your official position.
I mean, my official position means nothing. I make no rules. I just say my opinion. I am not as apocalyptic about treasures as a lot of people are. I do think they're extremely powerful. I think they're being underrated by a lot of casual players. I think Command Zone said it best when it's like we need to rate each treasure token like a lotus petal, because it is. It is worth a card. It is worth a legacy card. Treasures are extremely powerful. And I wish they were taken with that level of consideration at Wizards. I looked it up right now. There are 26 cards in Streets of New Capenna that make treasure tokens. 26 is a lot. 26 is a ton of cards that do that. I understand the thematic reason that treasure is a part of this, and I'm glad that they get to play in that zone. I'm hoping we do get a little bit of reprieve from it, because I think the treasures will absolutely speed up the format, whether we recognize it or not. 26 for the main set. Yeah, there are additional cards in the precons as well that I have not looked up. And not all of those 26 are good. Not all of those 26 will see play, but that's a lot still. The unfortunate thing about treasures is I think a lot of people are responding to it by feeling the need to put like Stony Silence in their casual decks. And I don't love that. I don't want Stony Silence in casual decks, because that affects Voltron decks. That affects just artifact flavored decks. That affects, I just think we need to think very seriously about treasures as fast mana when they get to that point. Not all treasure cards are fast mana, but they are ramp cards. They do put you further ahead. So there's definitely an element of concern with this much treasure. I'm hoping we see less of it as we sort of go back into the more high fantasy type of realms in the next couple of sets. I think we'll get away from it a little bit, and I think it will be eventually fine. But if every card incidentally makes mana, it's just going to speed things up. It's just going to.
Yeah, especially some of the ones that we've seen that are more about refunding their own mana costs.
Yeah.
As well. If something costs 4 but makes 2 treasures on ETB, it didn't cost you 4.
Yeah, it just makes Storm better and more fun. And I love Storm. I love it. But it's not for a lot of casual tables.
Right. Especially if it makes those casual tables start to play those stacks pieces, like you mentioned, the Stony Silences, the Collector Oofs, right? The stuff that shuts down these mana generators. That's going to be overall worse for the format.
My biggest point about treasures is I completely forgot. I hate that treasures are in green.
Yeah.
I absolutely I know this is a big thing that's been on Twitter. I don't think treasure is green flavorfully even a little bit. I think like money is absolutely a representation of civilization and should be white. I think it should be red. I think it could maybe be blue. Certainly black. I think it should be never, ever, ever in green ever.
White,
And it was very upsetting that this was a huge green mechanic in this set.
White, the color that was deemed not having treasures moving forward when they updated the color pie.
We give treasures value. That's like the whole bit about money is money's worth nothing except for people decide it's worth money, which means it's the most white. And okay.
Yeah, exactly. Jake, it sounds like you agree.
Yeah, no, that was one of my big takeaways that I was going to talk to you about treasures. I see the utility in a set like this where 3 colors, and I'm thinking like limited, or you're playing to these 3 colors. You want that mana fixing to be able to have access to. There's a lot of creatures and just spells in general that are 3 colors. And that is difficult. And treasure, is great at fixing that and making sure that you can cast those cards. Shouldn't be on as many green cards as I'm looking at right now. I did the same thing. Yeah, 26 cards. Okay. And on the first, I'm looking at the first page, and half of them are green. And not only does green not need it, but it does. I wouldn't say I'm a color pie purist by any means, but I do like a little bit of divide, because that's what's fun to me, especially as a brewer and commander, is that I have access to certain abilities in these certain colors, and I'm making that decision, and that's why I don't just play 5 color good stuff, right? I want to. There's a certain creativity that comes from constraining yourself, and by making treasures evergreen, it gives green access to another something that it takes away that creativity.
Yeah, and you feel that even as a brewer with a limited card pool as opposed to a legacy card pool like Commander, that having green give you that access to everything that you need, or having treasures give you access to every color, that does cheapen the deck building process.
Yeah, no, I don't know if cheapens the right word. It just it doesn't feel to me. It doesn't feel like I'm creating something. I feel a little bit more handed it than I was able to come up with something. Because again, that's the same thing. That is kind of thing about the treasures is, it allows me to play that stuff more easily, which is, or at least those multicolored things more easily. But I have a feeling like I'm thinking about, when I go to pre-release, or when I pick up my pack and whatnot, how many people are going to try to play 5 colors, with access to so much treasure making, when you probably shouldn't. It's a 3 color set, if you're in green and you got some green treasure makers, guess what? You in 5 colors, baby. Let's go. You don't even need to try. But yeah, to me, yeah, like I said, I don't know if it's cheap, and I don't know if I like that, but it does make it feel like it's less of something. I feel less accomplished with it being a more evergreen, more readily available.
Fair. Ken, how do you feel? I know treasures are making a big impact on the higher end of the format. Definitely a staple player there. How do you feel about them being introduced en masse in this set?
Yeah, I mean, I would, and this is presumptuous, but I'll be presumptuous. Why not? I feel like I might be the person on the panel who has cracked more treasures than anyone, having played like Storm in competitive circles for a long time.
It's probably close.
Right? Like a lot of treasures with lots of Twin Flame Dockside Extortionists in my life. So I've definitely taken advantage of it. I think, I like the sort of frame of thinking about treasures as like a development of gold, right? And I think the idea of like, oh, they need to tap, thus you can make them come in tapped. You can shut off the ability with stunning, like you can punish the ability in that way is fine. But I still think that it is it's Lotus Petals, right? Exactly. Like Rachel's exactly right. It's free real estate. It's like Lotus Petals that you got some Lotus Petals. You got some Lotus Petals. Lotus Petal, real good card. Real good. Incredibly good card. So I do think that they're maybe being used sort of as a short-term fix that might have long-term repercussions from a design perspective. But I also really want to shout out something that I think really has helped me think about this challenge, right? The game mechanical challenge of treasure tokens and like what they can do to Commander as a whole. There's a video called Why Commander is Speeding Up, and it's by Lamora's. Let me read the name of the channel: Lamora's Cards and Horrors. This is like an incredibly good and thoughtful video that to me was very persuasive, and it makes the central argument that like players value proactive stuff more than they value reactive stuff. So we're always going to see more proactive stuff printed from Wizards going forward. And treasures are the most proactive solution to the problems of mana screw and not being mana fixed. And those are two psychologically pretty like draining feelings that Magic players encounter a lot. And so it's super expedient. It's very easy to understand once you encounter it once or twice. So I have a feeling we're going to see a lot more of it. That said, like, I mean, I don't know. I'm of the mind of like unban everything, no gods, no masters, whatever. Let locals sort it out. But I imagine that like if Dockside Extortionist got banned as a way of telling WotC, slow your roll, like that was a design mistake. Think about this more seriously. I wouldn't be surprised and I wouldn't be disappointed even. And I've cast that card a hell of a lot of times, but I don't know. I think that's like my general thinking about it. But yeah, with this set, I don't know. I'm the player who always tries to force 5 colors in drafts and loses, so I appreciate it. But I can see it being maybe like not the best game mechanical design trajectory for the long-term health of Commander, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm. I am of the opinion that treasures shouldn't be immediately rewarding. I think treasures were introduced as a solution for color fixing and ramping, but one of the things that I don't think was taken into consideration is the synergy with them being artifacts, and them being artifacts that enter the battlefield and the things that they trigger when they are created as well. There are a lot of mechanics around that have been underestimated. And we can see that stretching back to Ixalan when they were first introduced, Revel in Riches wins you the game for having 10 treasures. I think we can all safely say that 10 treasures is not a difficult thing to have in Commander. So, you know, when you see alternate win cons that are like have 100 counters on a Helix Pinnacle versus have 10 treasure tokens, it definitely seems like when these were first introduced, they definitely undershot how easy they were to create, what they can do, and what you can do with them. That Reign in Riches spell, enchantment that I talked about, the wording on it is mana from treasures, not when you sacrifice a treasure to cast a spell, meaning you can tap those treasures for mana with something that uses artifacts to pay for spells, and it gives those spells cascade without you using those resources. So you can Inspiring Statuary, and suddenly tapping without sacrificing those treasures gives all of your spells cascade.
That's sweet.
Oh, Galazeth also you can tap
Galazeth is the other one.
cast
Sage
things.
and I were talking about that on Twitter. Sage of Fables. Go look them up.
Need to get my Galazeth deck back out. Ooh.
Exactly. But when you tap a treasure for mana, even if you don't sacrifice it, you get these effects. So just the impact of making a treasure impacts the game. Just the impact of the synergies of the treasure impacts the game. That's before you've ever sacrificed any of them for mana as well. So I think that it was vastly underestimated how easy it is to create, what they do, and the kind of impact that they have on the game.
I want to throw out a shout out for a card that I think is very underplayed, both in casual circles and in competitive circles. Little Urza's Saga uncommon that I like to call Meltdown.
Yeah,
real good. Play Meltdown, people. It's very, 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 very good. And so if people are sitting there hoarding their treasures like the dragons that they want to be, you just, one little red mana, boop, you just boop them with one little red. It's great. It's a great card. And then it also is modular, right? You can, I mean, it's not modular, but it's got a high ceiling. Ramp it up if somebody's got their big, crazy artifact creatures or, you know, their chromatic orreries or whatever. But otherwise, Meltdown. Buy it. Play it. Good card.
There you go. You solve treasures.
I will say not every card that makes treasures is Dockside Extortionist.
Yep.
But I would say that Commander players in general need to rate treasure tokens higher. I think they're extremely underestimated in terms of threat assessment. And I think that is kind of part of why the design is so flippant about it, is because, we just don't really clock them as that. And I think it's, if somebody's got 6 mana on board that they could have at any moment, that's a lot more powerful than a lot of players are rating it as. So just look at treasure tokens twice, and also spend them less flippantly because they're extremely powerful.
Exactly. I'll cite every time I've had a Gira per Aether Grid out and start making treasures with that.
I was playing against somebody that just said, I'm going to sack treasures, while I've got them. I was like, no, tap your lands. What? Tap your lands. Save. Those are cards. Those are lotus petals. You hoard them. They're special until you need them.
Clay, you had something to add.
I think what Rachel just said there actually kind of speaks to, I think, my approach to them and my experience with them is I think that they have such a high ceiling. They can be so powerful, but in my experience, people aren't maximizing their potential. They're not building decks that take advantage of them being lotus petals. They're just like kind of temporary mana to cast an extra thing on this turn, because like, hey, I've got 4 mana right now and I got this 4 mana spell in my hand, so I'm just going to cast it now instead of thinking about like what's coming down the pipeline in a couple turns. And like you, Chris, you mentioned Revel and Riches, and like 10 treasures is nothing.
Yep.
I've maybe lost to Revel and Riches 1 time since Ixalan came out in Commander. Could people be doing this? Yes. I feel like there's some self-regulation going on in Commander with that aspect, and I think maybe that's why I am not having maybe that's why I don't have the same kind of sense of power level for them. I would be curious to see what they would have done with this set if they went around fixing for 3 colors in a different way other than treasures. And I am curious to see how, from a pre-release, limited, draft, sealed, what the experience is doing it this way versus doing the like more slow tap lands and dorks and auras that make the lands tap for extra mana and stuff. And maybe I think Mishoda mentioned it in chat, but maybe they could have just made the treasure a Halo artifact token and just left it for this set. I don't know if that solves.
What if Halo tokens were one tap sack, add 1 mana of any color?
Make it more filtering than
just filtering.
Yeah.
Like just fixing rather than ramp.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it would be interesting. It'd be slow as hell as a format.
It'd be slow.
I want
to like, oh god, it would be so slow.
I want to do an advertisement just because it's contrarian and that seems fun. I want to do an advertisement for treasures and say, if anybody wants to crush treasures and snort them, Google Corvold Treasure Storm, proxy it up, give it a spin. And boy, oh boy, if you think treasures are interesting, just wait until every game in turn 2, they are just making you draw cards, reanimate dockside over and over again. So it's a hell of a drug. Lots of fun. I recommend it once, at least once.
Also much slower Smothering Tithe and Emergency Powers.
Yes.
And Wheels.
Yes. Yeah. Smothering Tithe Wheel is it's a beautiful combo.
But like even Smothering Tithe, like there's so many people who I hear they just oh, you can have it, and then the next turn they're like, oh my gosh, how did you win the game the next turn? And I'm like, because you didn't pay your taxes, bro. Like
it's the risk study problem all over again, right? The moment one person doesn't pay their taxes.
But I've even noticed that, like, for risk, I find, and I play with a play group that they never pay, and I'm like, oh my gosh, am I the only adult in the group? I'm like, but like they'll be like, oh yeah, you can't have the card, but oh man, take your treasure. Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to what Rachel was saying, that as Commander players, we're not valuing it as what it is, which is a lotus petal, and we're just like, oh, you can have it, whatever. And then again, we're all on turn 4, and our opponents, 3 turns ahead of us as far as ramp goes, and it's like, oh wow, how'd you run away with the game? Well, we kind of let it happen.
I actually had a debate, not a debate, like a little exchange with Cass Wiley about the Smothering Tithe versus Rhystic Study, and because I've died so many times sitting on like 20 treasure because I didn't have access to more cards, but every time I had more cards, I had access to more mana, and it's I don't know how you solve that other than like trying to get the pod to pay responsibly to
just parenting them, being like, you have these responsibilities,
or you just run both and profit.
Right, yeah, then you just exploit them. You're like, I know they're not going to pay.
I as soon as I heard Command Zone call them lotus petals, I was like, oh my god, that changes everything.
Yeah.
And I think just referring to it as those, you're like, oh my god, that's a legacy playable. Like every one of those is a legacy playable. And I think that really changes perspectives on it, and is worth saying out loud.
Yeah, good enough that CEDH makes room in their 99 for Lotus Petal, right? It's good enough that it's worth a slot in your deck for essentially a treasure token. One treasure token.
One card is one treasure token.
Yes. Yeah.
That's insane.
So treat it. So if you've got something that makes multiple versions of a card in your deck, I've always said it, the moment you can get multiple versions of a card in your deck, you start breaking the game.
Yeah.
Just
exactly what
just as a fun number, some friends and I are going to release this here any minute, but we are regularly and automatically crunching the numbers for all the deck lists on the CDH deck list database. So I've got a fun little statistic about Lotus Petal. Of the most played artifacts in CDH, and by the way, the most played cards in all of those decks are fast mana artifacts. It is below Mana Crypt's number 1, Chrome Mox, Mox Diamond, Soul Ring, and then Lotus Petal. Above Mana Vault, above Jeweled Lotus, above Arcane Signet, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So
5.
that might be some useful.
It's so
context.
good,
right?
Yeah.
It real good. So we're going to get to our final questions, then we're going to get into our Q&A here. So I just want to remind everybody in chat, get your questions in. We'll be getting to Q&A in a couple of minutes here, but we're also going to be starting the raffle at the end of Q&A. So if you haven't donated, get your donations in. We're going to be making sure that we do that draw at the end of the night. It looks like we're very close to hitting 300 here, which is our next goal. Hopefully we can hit that by the end of the night. So let's keep that ball rolling. Everybody, for our panel, we've got a couple more questions, and then we'll get to everybody else's questions, chat's questions here. All right. So for the panel, as we wind down, how do we feel about the set's complexity? Every family of the 5 families has their own keyword, and then we have the return of Hideaway as well. So there are essentially 6 keywords in this set. Is it a lot to keep track of? Is this something that is not exactly beginner or introductory friendly here? Is this something that's going to dissuade a lot of people? Rachel, please.
Before we get into it, can anyone name the 5 keywords? Anyone of us?
I mean, I can.
Can you?
Yes.
Go for it.
Casualty, Connive, Alliance, the Blitz, and Casualty, Connive, Alliance, Blitz, and what's the other family? Shield, and then it's Hideaway as well. So that's 6.
Shield counters are the keyword. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, but explain to me what Lagrella does, because I still don't know. Like
that's the one that exiles a permanent for each player, including yourself. Yeah. And then when it leaves play, it returns everything else.
And then when yours comes back, it gets counters.
It gets 2 counters on it. Yeah.
But it's not like any number of creatures that you want. It's 1 per player. And
up to 1 per player. So you can choose not to exile from other people. But yes, it is very weirdly worded to make sure that it is set up that way, that you can do for up to each player, whatever. Is the set too complex? Are these keywords too much? Is it too much for people? We saw a couple of cards that we highlighted earlier that had one line of text on them and are still really good, but then we've got Lagrella, who is one of those let's make the font smaller in the text box cards. Do we feel that this set is just too much? Jake, let's start with you.
Yeah, I wouldn't introduce my new. So I run a Magic club. I wouldn't introduce them with this. This is a lot to do. I think it definitely rewards in franchise players with lots of cool goodies. Like we were just talking about that, how they're taking these 3 colors and they're kind of expanding on them. And as someone who's familiar with a lot of these concepts and whatnot, I think I get it okay. But even I still have to rack my brain with how much each card does. We talked about how the uncommon legends are a good example of you just need one line of text and it does its thing. A lot of these rares, like I'm looking at, like again, Rafine, okay, has flying plus ward plus connive plus reminder text of what connive actually does, and it's like I'm definitely going to forget to add the counters at the end, or I'm going to forget that it has ward or something, there's almost so much that I feel like I'm not going to be able to optimally play them until I like have a few rounds under my belt. So beginner friendly, maybe not, but I guess that brings into question, does every set have to be, it kind of goes back to is this product made for me? Not every product's made for me, sort of thing. I mean, I think it's okay. I don't think it's inaccessible. But I definitely think as we get to not only is it complex, but the wordier and wordier stuff, like I said, it's just us. I feel like it's just stapling on extra value to things. And again, it kind of, and this is just a personal thing, to me, it kind of cheapens some of this stuff, because when I have so many options or one card that does so many things, I feel personally less creative, and like I'm working for those goals a little less.
Yeah, when everything does everything you want, it's an efficient body, it's an attacker, it draws cards, it gets you value. It takes a lot out of it from a builder standpoint, right? When you've got one card that just does everything. Ken, what do you think about set complexity?
I was just there's a really fun, or fun if you have my brain, I guess, but fun for others too, hopefully. There's a fun Twitter account and WordPress blog that's just like somebody who's doing data science and data analysis about Magic.
Love them. Love them.
And it's called mtgds.wordpress.com. And he, this writer, released a post analyzing the complexity of the set of S&C. And there's a good, I think, kind of relevant excerpt. It just says, if we use a simple character count on the text boxes of cards as a measure of complexity, Streets of New Capenna is one of the most character dense sets we've seen ever, but is down slightly from AFR and Kamigawa and Neon Dynasty, which I didn't really, that kind of took me by surprise. I was like, oh man, maybe so many of us just got wrapped up in Neon Dynasty, like, because it was an amazingly good, well-designed set. I didn't really think about it as like particularly complicated. But I think that goes a long way to say, like, if you have aesthetic cohesion, the mechanical complexity gets smuggled into people's brains. Like, that's the beauty of the aesthetic presentation, is it just feels correct. It makes a kind of intuitive sense. And I think here, while it might be a little less complex than Neon Dynasty, I think it also is aesthetically a little less coherent. And that's not really a knock, because again, Neon Dynasty is like so good. But yeah, so if anybody's interested in that post too, it's the most recent post on that blog, and it has kind of a more thorough analysis.
Highly recommend following them on Twitter as well. Absolutely love them. I mean, I'm very data driven myself, and I've had conversations with them about this stuff because it's 100% up my alley. Clay, what do you think about the set's complexity?
I think I can't really gauge how complex it is, especially for like Jake mentioned, or like people in the chat were mentioning, for like new players, or like reading the cards, looking at the cards, because I am a super enfranchised player who spends all of my free time looking at these cards, going over them, and like interacting with them, whether it's on Arena or this or that, so that like, and I was actually curious, Ken, because I hadn't had a chance to look at that WordPress. When they look at the character density, does that include reminder text for like if we're introducing 5 new mechanics and then a return of a 6th one, right? Like that's naturally going to like just skew a setup.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'll have to look while you're chatting and try to find out.
Okay. So I think there's always, every set's going to have some weird cards that are just phrased weirdly as they try to protect themselves from corner cases or like bad interactions. What's the one that was it from from Kamigawa? Hinata, the Sky Kirin, the Jeskai commander, that they were like, you can actually in paper break the game of Magic with the volcanic offering. I think it's the sorcery that you choose 2 and they choose 2, but if they choose the wrong 2, then the game just resets itself back to before you cast it, and you can just keep forcing that to force your opponent into, you know what I mean? Like there's with the length of Magic, you know, they can try, I think they're doing better at trying to protect themselves from like weird interactions, funky interactions. This, obviously, I haven't had a chance to play with the cards from New Capenna yet. I don't think that there's been anything that's jumped out at me that's just been like, this is inscrutable, and I have no idea what this card does. But there's a lot of text, and I don't know. It's tough to, again, as long as Magic's been running, to keep innovating without adding more and more text. At a certain point, you've made a ton of creatures, right? And so, or a ton of instants, a ton of sorcery. So as you explore new design space without tripping over your own feet because of decisions and designs that you've made before, you kind of have to, it just kind of keeps spiraling and keeps getting longer.
The complexity singularity.
Yeah, and
where eventually we'll get so bad that we'll get Yu-Gi-Oh levels of having to pull out a magnifying glass to read text boxes.
I do think though that the last couple sets have been easier to parse for me personally than sets prior. Even if they have more words, they have to have all those words just to make the abilities work, but they don't feel as convoluted in what the words are saying to do.
Fair.
I would, I don't know. I also don't know if I would ever introduce new players with standard sets. Would be, I guess maybe like Ixalan would have been a set. The set that I'd felt like comfortable introducing new players to. But there's a lot there. Thinking about the different sets, it feels like a lot of them are, kind of more complicated than like the Planeswalker decks or the some of those that are just a little chiller.
Yeah. Rachel, what do you think about set complexity? Is this beginner friendly? Is this an entry point for new players, or would you shy them away from this 3-color set?
I would not introduce a new player to this. I think if I was bringing a new player to the game, I would build my own deck, or I'd bring him through Jumpstart. I think Jumpstart's the best way to introduce anybody to Magic, just generally. It's really the only entry-level product that they're printing with any regularity. I am not a huge fan of the keywords. I think connive is particularly bad in terms of complexity, and I think it's because there's like 2 halves. Like it's a weird keyword that does 2 things, where it's like both the draw discard and the if it's this then it's that, and also you could do this more than once. Like connive X is crazy. It's like, okay, connive X, and then also you put Y counters, where Y is the number of non-creatures, and this is keyworded, So I think we're getting a little messy. Some are better than others. Ravine is definitely our first introduction to Connive. But I do think that this set is going to feel better with the more time we've have access to these cards. I think the reason I'm overwhelmed with New Capenna more than I was overwhelmed with Kamigawa is because there are 5 commander decks.
Yeah.
And a lot more legends, and we got a lot more cards at the same time. The other thing that we need to recognize with this is because we did all of the fiction first, and because they moved the digital release back and the pre-release up, that gave us a very, very short spoiler season. So we got a lot of cards very quickly. Spoiler season for New Capenna was less than 3 weeks. We obviously got some cards before that, but that's a lot denser than previous sets. So I think people are just overwhelmed with the amount of cards that we got, especially commander players, because there's just, I mean, there's like 7 new Grixis commanders or something like that. There's 2 in the main set plus the uncommon. Then there's 3 in the actual set plus there's 1 that's only available in set boosters or something like that. Like, it's bananas. So I think what we're overwhelmed by is not necessarily the complexity of the set, although it is very complex because it is 3 colors. It's just the amount of cards that we got access to, and the more time we spend with all of these, the less we're gonna care about half of them. So
Fair. Well,
Yeah.
we've got 5 more precons to look forward to with Battle for Baldur's Gate as well.
yeah, they're coming
let's-
fast. The other thing with
all
Kamigawa
look
that
forward.
really got me was like the flip sagas, where it's like a thing, another secret thing. Like, we're not we're not that level of complexity, which I think is merciful.
I'm ready for every card to be 4 cards.
Yeah.
So I can play a 400 card commander deck.
You peel back the top and there's actually another card under it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's modal, double face, and then each one has
Yeah.
a peel sticker. Yeah.
Every enchantment is 3 sorceries and a creature. That's what I want.
Yes. Yes. Correct. Yep. Exactly. I'm ready.
Every card has 2 sides, and both sides have a different aftermath on
Good.
them
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
So
Oh,
you get
yeah. There you go.
1,
Yep.
2,
Mhm.
flip it
3,
over,
4.
3,
Yeah.
4.
It's like the unset card that's 8 little boxes. I'm ready for that.
Absolutely
Like, let's
devastating.
go there.
It's coming. It's coming. Okay, so as we get ready for chat Q&A, I want to go around one more time. I want to ask everybody, was this set successful for you personally? Do you like this set? Is it a win? And is there anything that they missed out on in this set? Anything in particular that they wish they did, especially with this setting or with the opportunities in Shard set? Ken, let's start with you.
Yes, I think the set's a success. Good Italian-American representation. I also think that I would have, the only misstep would be to have Wizards release a single sentence PR statement that just says, Halo is a drug and we are drug dealers. Semicolon, deal with it. That would increase my respect for the folks at the company. But no, yeah, I like the set. It's fun, and there are a lot of new fun toys to play with.
Perfect. Rachel, what do you think of the set?
I love the set, but I will be honest, I was extremely biased going into the set. They released the preview of what New Capenna was going to be, and I was like, it's demons in pinstripe suits in the United States driving cars? What? New Capenna feels like it should have been crossed off of a list. It feels like it should have come up in a brainstorm and people were like, what? No. And they didn't. And I loved that.
It feels like a Mad Lib that they turned into a set. Right?
It's so special in so many ways. It's hilarious and it's American and it's extremely violent and it's very flavor forward, and there's so much about it that I really appreciate, and I would never do or say anything that would discourage Wizards from taking big, goofy, dumb swings like New Capenna.
Heck yeah.
I like whatever they did wrong. I don't care if they continue to make stuff that makes me laugh and surprises me and makes me look at a Magic card in a slightly new light. So I appreciate it for those reasons.
Awesome. Jake, what did you think of the set? Is it a win for you? Any missed opportunities?
Hey, if we can get, mobster demons, there's still hope for a Western set. The Texan here, I'm ready for it. Let's put some merfolk on horses. I don't know, something silly. But
seahorses.
Seahorses.
Yeah.
Underwater
underwater
Texan.
Western set. Okay.
We'll get a
hold on,
Western
go-
set.
hold
I'm
on.
right there with you. Let's go. Let's go.
I'm
Western
ready
set.
for it. Big old Stetsons and everything. But no, this was not a set that I saw on the list of, the next year in Magic that I was like, oh, particularly excited for. But seeing what they've done with it makes me really excited for them doing stuff like this, especially because we're doing Baldur's Gate and then we're doing these 2 Dominaria sets, which are very standard, high fantasy, kind of run the mill, what we're used to from Magic. So personally, I'm ready for that because I'm a fairly newish player, right? I started in Ixalan, and so I kind of actually do enjoy like going back to that stuff because I feel like I missed that when I was younger. But seeing new Capenna, kind of like Rachel was saying, gives me hope for the future that they're going to try more wacky stuff, some weird stuff, and do a really good job executing it. Like I said, I was not excited for this set, and as cards have come out, I've been getting more and more excited. Like, okay, I guess I'll buy it. Like, yeah, I'm on board.
Fantastic. Yeah. Clay, what about you? Sets of success? Any misses?
Yeah, I think the set's a resounding success for me, at least having not gotten to play it yet, not having got to hold the cards, see how they impact, see how they interact, etc. From a design and flavor aspects, I think that the art is incredible, the flavor is incredible, the choices that they made. I love every bit of it, and like I said it earlier, like I was pretty meh on the idea coming into it, just coming down from what is still my favorite Magic set of all time, and that they made me this excited, they got me this excited, I think is a testament to what they did, and I hope that they keep doing stuff like this to accompany the Baldur's Gates and the Dominaria and the Brothers' War. I hope that we keep getting these top-down worlds and these different designs and these risks. I agree with Rachel that I think this set should have been crossed out. I think they tried to, and they accidentally underlined it. They're like, no one's going to do that. We can't do that. And they went like
not.
this, but it was instead just too low. And so somebody was like, oh, no, look, it's got an underline. We've got to make that one super special. I don't know that there's anything that I missed in it. Like I said, I just think it's top to bottom great.
Yeah. I'm personally a big fan. I like the visually distinct sets, the ones where you can take a look at the art and know what plane or what set it's from. I really loved Kamigawa for that. We could take a look at that art and the neon cyberpunk and know exactly where we are, exactly what set that's from. And now we can look at the pinstripe suits and the art deco decor and say, I know exactly what plane I'm on. I know exactly what card this is from. I absolutely love that. So I was on board right away. It's a success for me too. I think that there are a few maybe little missteps. I think the finger guns, while a funny concept, was a little clunky. Apparently the magic is shot from finger guns, and that to me is not not something that really resonates with me. And then there's the lightning gun as well. Like there's an actual equipment that is a lightning Gatling gun too. I think that's a little bit of a miss from me, just from flavor and background standpoint. But apart from that, I love the mechanics. Again, it's got my brewer's gears going. Not really hard to do that, but I love it. There it is, Arc Slinger there. That's super weird to see in Magic. I'm sorry.
Bring guns back to Magic. Alaborn Zealots got one. The Musketeers got one.
Guns.
Bring more guns.
Well, you'll get your wish granted when 40K comes out, Warhammer 40K comes out, because that's
It's true.
all guns all the time.
Also,
I
Lord of
will
the Rings.
say with Arcspitter, the design of this card is incredible. The fact
Oh,
that you have to pay
absolutely.
one over and over again, like that it goes ga 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 ga, like it literally, it's like it sounds
Yeah.
like
You're
what they
literally
did.
machine
Yeah.
gunning down something.
dun,
Yes,
dun.
They did,
absolutely.
that's incredible.
Yeah. It's yeah. Again, flavor wise, I think the set's a win. I think from like some story beats and some of the art cues here, maybe not. So all around, I think that the panel has said this set's pretty great on paper. Looking forward to get our hands on it. And like was touched upon earlier, we're going to be able to get our hands on it in paper before in digital as well, which is really unique. This is the first time that they're doing in-person pre-releases before they're doing arena pre-releases. It's nice to see that get a little bit of priority now that people are safely meeting back up in person again. So if you are attending your pre-release, remember, do be safe, do practice personal safety when it comes to being in public with other people as well, and do enjoy your pre-release coming up this Friday. All right, so we're going to get into our chat questions. So chat, if you do have more questions, make sure to enter them in chat. Make sure to redeem the highlight message. There is a special 1 channel point redeem message in chat that you can do so that we see your response. And as soon as we're done these questions, we are going to be doing our drawings too. So if you want to donate for a chance to win the Infinitokens prize pack, the Arena prize packs, or the right now 2 new Capenna precons we'll be giving away, potentially a third, do donate now in increments of $5 before we wrap things up for the night. All right, so we do have a couple of questions from chat, everybody. The first question from our friend Thromo King, fellow Chris. Any concern about new or more pushed mechanics that naturally lend themselves to increasing turn length? So more decision-based ones like Connive, with drawing multiple cards and needing to decide what multiple cards to discard. Treasure generation might be one of the primary ones as well, in terms of how much more decisional complexity it can add to a turn. But even just creating a ton of different kinds of ability counters generally increases the need for tabletop bookkeeping. So this kind of stems off of that complexity question. But more about turn length. Is this going to make games longer? Is this going to make things more difficult from a bookkeeping or a visual acuity standpoint? Anyone with any thoughts?
I think they were more careful about it in this set, at least as far as I'm concerned. Connive definitely has like that multiple trigger, and every time you draw, you have to make a new decision type of thing. I think they were very careful with Alliance, which I appreciate. Alliances whenever a creature enters the battlefield, so it can really gum up decisions, but they did a lot more of this only triggers once per turn. Or if it triggers the second time, it does something better, which is cool. So you still get that value without having 1 million triggers on board every time. So I was happier about that kind of stuff. But I agree. Connive can definitely be an issue.
I think that they're actively, like Rachel said, they're actively designing where we're seeing a bunch of cards that could go off or could take up a lot more of that game action equity, but it's once a turn. This only happens once a turn. This only happens, and so like even as they're introducing new things, I don't feel like there's anything, at least not necessarily in this set, that I'm like, oh, I'm going to be sitting at a table for 20 minutes, 25 minutes longer than I would have been if they were playing a different deck. And I, as Commanders, has become like the format, the biggest format and stuff. I think that they're going to be more and more cognizant of that. And with the exception of certain thumbless friends, I think that they're, we're seeing more streamlined choices. So I'm not. I mean, is there a chance that they could end up printing something and then like one of the next couple sets that's just like, oh my goodness, this takes so much longer to resolve at the average level? Yeah. Am I afraid of it? No. I think there's other more likely bugbears for the format.
Bugbears coming up in Battle for Baldur's Gate. Jake, any thoughts on the matter?
Yeah, I think my thing is I just gotta read more cards. What part of the thing about the set that I kind of didn't mention earlier, but I was thinking it is with so many cards being revealed so quickly and with so many words, my little brain, my little smooth brain tends to skip over some of them. I'm like, I'm not going to read that, but like, good for you, or like, sorry, like, I don't know, either way, like, I feel like that meme
Yes,
is
it
like,
is that
yeah,
meme.
because it's like, that's a lot of text. I'm going to skip that one. I got other stuff to look at real quick. So I feel like for me, it's going to be people are going to play stuff. I'm going to have to like look and like, oh, what does that do? And that might slow down, but it goes back to how do we innovate in a game that's existed for so long. There's only so many bears we can, 2/2s with no text that we can do before, we get bored. So I kind of like to kind of point to, I think they're being careful of it. I'm glad that I think Wizards is aware of it. It's just kind of the nature of the beast.
Mm-hmm.
I guess as the thumbless menace here, maybe like chiefly responsible for the only CDH deck that has a tournament organizer's warning altar sleeve that I made. But anyway, so it's like the representative for like Storm in EDH, I guess. I'll just maybe put some fears to rest. There are only a few cards that we're considering for the various coin flip and Krark decks in the world, but one of them is an offer you can't refuse, and that will involve just countering our own spells over and over and over again to make treasure tokens to then do other stuff. So yes, leave it to the Storm players to find incredibly convoluted ways to get from A to B. But this set, to me, at least, doesn't strike me as like, oh, yeah, there are a bunch of cards that are going to slow down the game, at least from the CDH Storm perspective. Not really.
Yeah. And I do have to say another achievement is the MLC will have a dedicated person on hand for all Krark-related games to ensure that the games are carried out in a timely manner and to run the Krarkulator as well. So.
Call me Dr. Frankenstein, I guess.
Do the Krark math.
Yeah, exactly.
And from a bookkeeping standpoint, Chris, we were revealed by Chris Mooney, I think just earlier today, that at very least the commander precons are going to have punch out counters on them for all of the different kinds of counters that come in decks as well. So there's less need for external bookkeeping when it comes to the kinds of counters you'll be including on things. And our friend and sponsor, Infinite Tokens, does make these amazing rewritable tokens too. So, and again, you could win an Infinite Tokens prize pack as well. So next question is from Epos Andy, who made this incredible layout for us, by the way, for tonight's roundtable. Small round of applause for Andy here. Amazing work from him. Aside from identifying with a family, which is your favorite of the mechanics of them? We did say, can you name all of them? But do you have a mechanic of those 5 that you might like most?
I like connive. It is a little extra. It could get rid of the counters, and I would be totally happy with it. Draw X, discard X, and I would be totally happy because I just love getting able to discard and like choose and feel like, oh, I'm so smart for knowing what to discard, and then I'm gonna cheat it into play, or there's a reason for it. So I like connive. Probably just could have taken the counters off, and I would have been just fine.
Jake, what do you think about the name connive?
It's weird.
It feels so sneaky.
It does, and I guess that's kind of. I guess I kind of like it because it's like, ooh, look at me, I'm discard, and like discard is usually a bad thing, but it's actually a good thing in my deck. Like I'm making it a good thing. So
yeah,
but I don't know.
Connive as a verb just feels weird to me. Like
right?
conniving,
Yeah.
yes.
To connive, right?
One
right.
who connives is.
I'm a conniver. Yeah, I don't know.
Anyone else with mechanics that they like best?
So I actually weirdly, because they basically didn't get talked about at all during this whole roundtable, I think out of the actual mechanics, I think Casualty is the one that I don't play those colors at all, and that's not a design space that I'm in a lot. But the idea of getting to turn your bodies into multiple copies of the spells, it feels really cool, and I really like that mechanic, and I'm really curious to see what other people do with it, because I probably won't, but I'm excited to be on the other side of that and to see where Wizards takes that kind of option, turning creatures into spells and stuff like that. I think it's a really neat mechanic, and
Rachel, sounded like you agreed with that.
Yeah, Casualty is my favorite as well. I also think it's the best named. I love the idea that there's a casualty that you pay the price to have more magic. There's somebody just happened to die.
Yeah, I think it
It's
interacts
cool.
really well with Magecraft from Strixhaven as well. I mean, that was just last year at
like
this point.
Sedgemoor Witch.
Yeah, it's great with Sedgemoor Witch.
There you go. Ken, what about your favorite mechanic?
I agree. I think Connive's really elegant. I mean, rather, I think that Casualty is really elegant, but I also like Connive. I just think Connive is going to be, once players get used to it, I think we're going to see it a lot, because it's, I mean, you know, looting is historically very powerful. Faithless looting, good card, it turns out. And looting and then making creatures bigger, and particularly creatures with evasion, like, yeah, that's pretty wild. Like that 1 in a blue flyer that connives when opponents do stuff. That's like, that card is wildly powerful.
Yeah.
So I like that mechanic, but I agree. Casualty is really just neat, conceptually so neat.
Yeah. Have you seen Mask of the Schemer? I think it's called. It's another exclusive from the Precon.
Sweet.
Where it's when it deals combat damage, connive X, where X is the amount of damage dealt. Like that's going to lead to some big punchies. That's for sure.
Here's a question I actually don't know how to answer. Connive X, is that draw 3, discard 3, or is that draw 1, discard, draw 1, discard, draw 1, discard?
So it's draw at where X equals the number. So if you deal 3 damage, it's you draw 3, then you discard 3. So they aren't separate triggers. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, real good. I think that Connive's going to end up being a real mechanic. And for some reason, I really like Blitz as well. It's like the dash mechanic out of Khans of Tarkir, but with a bit of a different spin on it. You don't get to do it over and over again. But most of the creatures with Blitz have death triggers on them. And then they also draw a card when they die as well. It's like you know, the brightest stars burn twice as bright and half as long kind of thing. And Blitz does exactly that, where it's like, hey, you get this really good creature, but you get it for 1 attack. Then you get all of these benefits from it, and it replaces itself in your hand. Like, I think it's real good.
I didn't vote Blitz because it's the one that's going to make me the angriest, because I'm going to get hit with it a bunch and I'm going to tilt. It's the exact kind of mechanic it's really good and it's really cool. And it's just going to infuriate me being on the other side.
Yeah. The fact that you can cast things without their Blitz as well and just have them be normal is super cool. But then you can pay the little bit more in order to Blitz them as a hasty surprise attack. I think it's really interesting. It's a mix of dash and sneak attack and a whole bunch of stuff. It's one of those catch-all mechanics kind of thing. So next question we've got up is from Incorrect MTG Quotes. Have you given a listen to the new Capenna soundtrack? Anything stand out from that? Do you have a favorite or least favorite? No? Anybody listen to the new Capenna soundtrack?
I have not. I forgot it. Yeah, I forgot it was going. Like, I remember them saying it was going to be a thing, and then I never followed up. I don't remember seeing anybody talking about it on Twitter. You know what I mean? Like, I don't remember it.
I think Gavin did a Good Morning Magic with the composer of it, but apart from that, I don't think they made too big of a fanfare about it. But I do like that they're releasing these companion soundtracks to sets as well. Helps really set the stage and set the mood for some of these sets. I've been listening to them in the background while I've been doing some of my brewing too, just to get me in the mood. So it's really cool. I don't have a favorite track. I just I don't look at the track names. Jake, go ahead.
So just as a musician, I'm a music teacher, by the way. This is cool. Like they definitely took, like, I'm listening to Nails and Kneecaps, which, by the way, is just a really awesome title for a track. Not only do they have instrumental tracks, but they have like a singer for them too, and it's stylized definitely in that 1920s lounge singer, big band jazz style, but with contemporary, like beats and like some other things thrown in. Man, I got something to do now. This is awesome. I really like this. I just heard like a few seconds. I've just listened to a few, but I love how they're taking inspirations from, real life inspirations of, the aesthetics of the 1920s big band sounds and contemporary, making them putting them through a contemporary lens and contemporary music styles and coming up with this music. Keep doing this. I promise I'll listen to the next one too.
Heck yeah. I recommend it. I like these soundtracks a lot. Recommend everybody go take a listen. Great for background sound as well, because there are quite a few instrumental tracks too. So we've got another one from our friend Throma King here. What do you think about the set's unique frame? The Art Deco frame and even those gilded frames as well. Has anybody seen video of the gilded frames
They're gorgeous.
in action? Oh, they are incredible. Oh, they are up there, in my opinion, up there with the etched foils from Commander Legends as some of my favorite frames and favorite treatments. Right? What does everybody else think about the deco frames and the gilded frames?
I've been a fan of this specific frames. Kind of like you said, it's really cool to see a card and immediately know where it's from. And there's so much story in the frames. I think back to some of my favorites were like the Call Time ones. I felt that Viking-esque aesthetic just oozing out of the card. And I'm definitely getting that, that decadence, that deco feel from a lot of these frames. And like I said, I know there's an argument. Well, if every card's special, then nothing's special. But I like the alternate frames. I like it that they're doing that. I love full art lands. Like, it's so cool because then you can just make your play experience more personal. And I don't really think it takes away anything personally.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any opinions, thoughts?
So I tend to build with the regular frames unless I'm really leaning into the aesthetic of one of the sets. And I like it for that reason because it does encourage you to build flavorfully again, where it's like, okay, well, I'm playing this version of the card from Innistrad, so I also want to play like the black and white lands, or I also want to get like Torrens in there because he's from Innistrad, and it does make me want to sort of match my aesthetic across a deck, which is fun, and I think makes a deck really personal and makes deck building work on a few levels. And even if you have this exact same list of 100 cards, it can look completely different between your list and somebody else. I think that's exciting. Like I said, I like my cards to look the same as much as possible. If this is a full art foil deck, then we're going full art foil as much as we can. But I think it's fun to see cards in their world.
Nice.
Oh, did y'all see that? I'm sorry. I was just thinking, did y'all see that card that has different art for the different regions that the card's in?
Yes. Yeah.
That is so cool. They need to do
I'm
that
a big
like more
fan of
often.
that.
Yeah.
I love
So
the 5
yeah.
different treasure tokens.
Yeah, the gala greeters. I think that's
Yeah.
so stinking neat that you depending on where you open your packs and what part of the world you live in, you can get the access to these alternate art cards. Like that's so keep doing stuff like that. I'm all about it.
Yep. Yeah, it's a nightmare for LGS owners and anybody who lists cards.
So sorry
but
for y'all.
All for it from like a visual distinction standpoint. I honestly love it too.
Yeah.
And I want to touch on it for a second. The full art lands in this set as well. I know that we're just coming off of Kamigawa that had, in my opinion, some of the most gorgeous full art lands that they have ever released. But the art style on the full art lands here in Capenna as well, it's so fitting for the set as well, and it's such a throwback to the art style for the time period that it is referencing as well. The mountains is one of them, and then the plains, in my opinion, some of the best as well. Right there, oh, chef's kiss, absolutely love it. They aren't the woodblock arts, but they are incredible and very, very distinct from a visual standpoint.
Yeah, I think as far as like the different frames and the different stuff, I think overall, New Capenna sits like right below Kamigawa and Ikoria for me. The comic book style of Ikoria was just one of the absolute coolest things, and is still one of the coolest things for me. And then I guess also, if you want to count them in that category, the War of the Spark Japanese alt art planeswalkers would also be, and New Capenna would sit like right below that. But I think as far as the basics go, if we hadn't just had Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, like New Capenna would have the best full art basics of all time for me. Like me personally, they're absolutely incredible. And then Chris is in the chat saying it, and I kind of can't believe I forgot to talk about it the whole roundtable. But we finished the Triome cycle. We have the Triome cycles finished, and all 5 of them look incredible. The art, regular art, the borderless art, the art, like all 3 versions of the art for all 5 of them are all great. And I'm really pleased to be able to put the 10 together in a deck and not be like, oh, these 5 are my favorite and beautiful, and these 5 are here because I need them. Like I could be like, oh no, look how cool these are too.
Yeah. And on the note of the Triomes, I saw one of the set designers today on Twitter say that their biggest regret from the set already was not having the Triome naming in these lands. And I agree entirely. Please have these named like Cabaretti Triome. Like, leave it at that, please. But no, I'm never going to remember these names. I'm just going to call them Triomes forever.
Yep.
I think it's funnier. I think the 5 original Triomes should have also had different names, and I think we should just embrace chaos. And
Oh, perfect. Of course you would. All right. So from Mishatem, speaking on the fiction, if we read it, I think we agreed that not all of us read it, but it felt kind of rushed at the end. I want to add to that. Did anybody read the books when they were releasing books from sets for lore? Anybody spanning back that far? Am I the only magic boomer that spans back that far?
I read them much later.
Yeah.
Friend of the stream, Hobbs Q, sent me like 4 or 5 books, Brothers War, and I can't remember what else. And so I read them, but much later than when they came out.
Right. And I mean, would you read them again? They're relatively short, digestible books, but I mean, it's something that you can sit down and read in the morning.
They were cool. The one book's actually like fairly hefty.
Back to the Brothers War, yeah.
But yeah, no, the stories were cool. When I read them a couple years ago, I'd reread them, I think.
Yeah. I just found and reread one from like Onslaught block back in my collection, and it's like 250 pages. I read it in a morning, but they used to give out these books with fat packs, and I think it's just a neat way to get the lore out there too.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the free articles. When I started playing in Ixalan, they had them, and I really liked it. And even though I've kind of like weaned off like reading a lot into the lore just because I'm busy and I have other I don't know, I gotta teach and stuff, whatever. I like that that's an option for people to dive in, that there's more than just a synopsis like we got in Theros, that there's, and really I get a lot of my lore from videos, and I if you're out there, please support the content creators that are doing dramatic readings, the voice acting and everything, because that stuff is so cool. Like, for them to take their time, like, support them and keep encouraging them, because that's the way that I've been getting my stories lately, is listening to either recaps or like just straight up audiobooks produced for free on YouTube. I would highly recommend that. That being said, they need material to work with, right? And these online articles that they're getting written by people, they seem to be well written. They seem to be, decent stories, and I'm glad that those are being provided for the people who do want to dive into the lore.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, folks. So we're going to get into the raffle winners, the draw winners here. But first, I want to thank all of our panelists for coming out. Thank you, everybody. Another fantastic roundtable. Always love getting to talk Magic with y'all. So we'll go around the horn just while we do the draws here. Once again, tell us who you are and where we can find you. Jake, why don't you kick it off?
Yeah, so hey everyone, I'm Casual Jake. I play Commander, play Pioneer, I stream, and I make YouTube videos. Basically, you can type in Casual Jake anywhere, especially if you want to connect on Twitter. That's the best way to reach me, at casual_Jake_. I'm also a member of Elder Dragon Skypelander, who streams Commander. We call it Battle Cruiser, right? I guess that's kind of like the Nitro Commander, every Thursday and every Sunday.
Fantastic. Big recommend. I've been on a couple of times. Always a great time. Rachel, who are you and where can we find you?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm on Twitter and Instagram and lately TikTok as Wachel Reeks. I am a member of the Commander Advisory Group. I am also one half of the Comedy Commander podcast, Commander Sphere, with my co-host Dan Sheehan. You can follow us at Command Sphere in most of those places. I also play live D&D every Monday with a group of comedians in a show called Better Than Heroes. We play Spelljammer inspired 5e, and it's a real wacky time. So come hang out with us on Mondays at 7 p.m. or you can check us out on YouTube as well.
Hell yeah. Ken, how about you?
Okay, so my name's Ken. I run the channel StackDDH. We make videos about Commander, both casual and competitive. I talk too much on Twitter. I run the Thumbless, which is the unified Krark Discord server. I maintain the CDH primers for Krark Sakshima, Krark Thrasius, and Krark Timna. Outside of Magic, I'm a writer. You can find info about my books at kenbauman.com. And there is a large plate of sushi that has been sitting beside me for 30 minutes that I now hope to eat. And thanks to the panelists and everybody, Chris, the chat, everybody. This was lots of fun, and I was glad to participate.
Amazing. And Clay?
Hi, friends. I'm Claybee. I'm the CNC representative here tonight. We play virtual EDH Wednesdays and Sundays, along with a bunch of other formats within Magic. And otherwise, you can find me playing Magic in the community with lots of friends on different streams, including I've gotten to be on Elder Dragon Skypelander and different places as well. You can also find me playing D&D and other TTRPGs on Twitch and elsewhere on the internet. Super fun as always, and I wanted to give a big shout out to not only everybody coming here, Chris for being just a wonderful moderator, but then also everybody in chat and everybody who just came out and donated and helped support such an important cause.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as always, folks, I am your moderator. I am Chris, your Commander Mechanic. You can find me anywhere by searching Commander Mechanic. I want to thank all of our panelists for coming out. I want to thank everybody in chat for coming out. This has been incredible. And I want to give a special thanks to Chris and Andy, who have been running the show in the background as well. We could not do these every set release without those two amazing people. So thank you both very much for that. All right, so we're going to wind things down. We are going to announce our winners here. Thank you, everybody, for donating. We've raised what looks like $250 for Trans Lifeline tonight. Thank you, everybody, for being generous with your donations. The winner of the Infinitokens prize pack is Redbird Riot. Congratulations, Redbird Riot. We will be contacting winners directly here as well. Our arena code winners are Throma King, Mishatem, Dark Ritualist, and Liege Pies. Thank you all very much for your generous donations. Congratulations on winning. And the winners of our new Capenna Commander Precons. Our first winner is Oath of Moment. Congratulations, Oath of Moment. And our second winner is Archine 13. Thank you very much. Congratulations to our winners. Thank you, everybody who donated. You've done an amazing thing raising donations for this incredible cause. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. As always, good luck and have fun.